My grandmother used to say that patience was a virtue. She was wrong. Patience is what you tell yourself when you're too scared to admit the truth. Nobody's coming for you. I sat at the furthest table in the Gangnam Park's ceremonial garden, half hidden behind an ancient ginkgo tree that had witnessed 100 mating ceremonies before mine. The autumn leaves glowed amber under string lights, and the air smelled like expensive wine and honeyed rice cakes I'd never be offered. 23 years old, fourth ceremony, still unmated, still alone. The table wobbled when I set down my cup of watered-down soju. Someone had broken this table years ago, and nobody bothered fixing it. Fitting. Broken things stayed broken here. Did you see Minho's suit? A voice drifted from the nearest table. Ju-won, the pack's golden child. Custom Dior. Alpha Hyunwoo hasn't stopped staring. Well, Minho's from the Busan bloodline, another Omega giggled. Their family owns half the shipyards. His pups will be legendary. I pressed my thumb against the rim of my cup until it hurt. 4 ceremonies. 4 years of watching other Omegas get chosen, while I collected dust in the corner like forgotten furniture. The pack healer said my scent was unusual, too sharp, too strange, like pine smoke instead of vanilla. The pack elders said I was a late bloomer, code for defective. My wolf was so small during my first shift that the younger pups laughed. Jiho the runt, Jiho the broken, Jiho the unwanted. Jiho, I looked up to find Elder Kangman standing beside my table, his weathered face creased with something that might have been pity. He'd been kind to me once, back when my parents were alive. Back when I still believed kindness mattered. You shouldn't sit back here, he said gently. Come join. I'm fine here, Elder. I forced brightness into my voice, the same bright I'd been forcing for 4 years. Better view of the ceremony, really. We both knew it was a lie. He sighed, patted my shoulder like I was a sick animal, and walked away. I watched him go, then turned my attention to the raised platform where Alpha Tajun stood preparing to begin. He was 73, silver-haired, and still commanded respect with every breath. Brothers and sisters of Gangnam Park, his voice boomed across the garden. Tonight, under the harvest moon, we honor our most sacred tradition. I'd memorized this speech 3 ceremonies ago. The naming began. One by one, Omegas stepped onto the platform. One by one, Alphas approached to claim them. The air crackled with mate bonds snapping into place. That electric, unmistakable pull of 2 souls recognizing each other. Minho was chosen first, obviously. Alpha Hyunwoo practically bounded onto the platform, his eyes glowing gold. The crowd erupted in cheers. 17 successful pairings later, the pool of unclaimed Omegas had shrunk to almost nothing. Then Alpha Tajun's voice cut through the garden like a blade. Park Jiho. The name landed in silence. Every head turned. I felt 100 pairs of eyes crawling over my skin as I stood on shaking legs. My chair scraped loudly against stone, the only sound in the entire garden. Don't trip. Don't cry. Don't give them the satisfaction. I walked toward the platform, each step feeling like wading through cement. I kept my gaze down because I knew what I'd see if I looked up. Pity from the elders, disgust from my peers, uncomfortable relief from everyone else that it wasn't them. I climbed the 3 wooden steps. The platform felt enormous and empty, like standing on a stage built for someone else's life. Alpha Tajun gave me a gentle look, the kind you give roadkill before you put it out of its misery. Park Jiho, son of the late Park Doyen and Lee Hunjae, presents himself to be chosen. Silence. I counted heartbeats. 1, 2, 5, 10. No Alpha moved. I'd known this would happen, known it with the same certainty I knew my own name. But knowing didn't make the humiliation burn any less. Somewhere in the crowd, someone coughed. A child laughed at something unrelated, the sound piercing through the quiet like broken glass. My hands trembled. I clasped them together to hide it. 20 heartbeats. Alpha Taijun cleared his throat. Perhaps we'll take him. The voice came from the garden entrance. Voices, plural. Every head whipped toward the sound. 3 figures emerged from the shadows beyond the string lights. Men so tall they seemed to block out the moon itself. They moved with the kind of synchronized grace that made my hindbrain scream danger. Each step deliberate, each breath measured. The first one was broad-shouldered, with sharp cheekbones and dark hair that fell across his forehead. His eyes glowed amber in the lantern light, fixed on me with an intensity that stole my breath. The second was leaner, elegant, with silver jewelry glinting at his ears and throat. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The third was the largest, taller even than the other two, with scars marking his knuckles and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone and violence. The crowd parted like water. I'd never seen them before. Judging by the gasps erupting around me, neither had anyone else. "And you are?" Alpha Taijun demanded, straightening to his full height. The first one climbed onto the platform with fluid grace that made my wolf whimper in my chest. Submission and fear, and something I didn't want to name. "Kang Minjae," he said, his voice carrying across the silent garden. "Alpha of the Songpa territory." Songpa. The name rippled through the crowd like electricity. I heard the whispers exploding around me, saw faces paling. Songpa territory. That's the pack from across the river. I heard their alphas are brutal. They don't follow council laws. Why would they come here? Why would they want him? That last question cut deepest, because I was wondering the same thing. The second alpha stepped forward, his silver jewelry catching the light. "I'm Young Seojin, also of Songpa." The third alpha's voice was a low rumble. "Cho Daehyun, Songpa." Three alphas, from a territory known for violence and isolation, all staring at me like I was the answer to a question I didn't understand. Alpha Taijun stepped between us, his aged face stern. "Alpha Minjae, while we appreciate your interest, the mating ceremony has protocols. You cannot simply appear and claim, 'The ceremony allows any unmated alpha to choose an unmated omega'," Minjae interrupted, steel beneath the courtesy. "We've chosen." A muscle twitched in Taejun's jaw. The challenge was clear. Deny them and admit the ceremony was theater. Accept them and let me be taken by three complete strangers from a pack with a brutal reputation. I found my voice, though it came out smaller than I intended. "I don't understand. You don't even know me." Minja's amber eyes fixed on me, and I felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. "We know enough," he said simply. "That's not an answer." Seojun laughed, sharp and bright. "Oh, I like him already." "Explain yourselves," Alpha Taijun said, his authority crackling. "Why this omega? Why now?" Daehyun's scarred hands flexed at his sides. "Because we need him." The honesty was startling. Not want. Need. A new voice cut through the tension. "Perhaps we should discuss this matter privately." Councilman Jiho stepped forward, his political smile firmly in place. He was the pack's chief advisor, a man who valued order above all else, especially when chaos didn't serve his purposes. "I'm sure we can reach an understanding," Jiho continued smoothly. "Translation, a bribe, a reason to send these dangerous strangers away." Minjae didn't even look at him. "There's nothing to discuss. The Omega accepts or rejects. Those are the only two options that matter." All eyes turned to me. My mind raced. Except three complete strangers, alphas from a territory known for breaking council laws. It was insane. Or refuse. Endure the humiliation of returning to my broken table. Wait another year. Watch another ceremony where nobody wanted me. Watch my friends raise pups while I withered in my parents' empty apartment. "The runt can't seriously be considering this," someone muttered, loud enough to carry. That decided it. I lifted my chin and met Minjae's gaze directly. "What exactly are you offering?" Something flickered in his eyes. Approval, maybe. A bond. A place in our territory. Protection. From three alphas? I couldn't help the edge in my voice. "Sounds more like a kidnapping?" Seojin's laugh rang out again. "Oh, he's definitely perfect." "Why me?" I pressed. "You could have any omega. Stronger ones, less defective." "You're not defective," Daehyun rumbled. "Everyone here would disagree." "Everyone here is an idiot," Seojin said lightly. Minji stepped closer, not threatening, but deliberate. We're choosing you, Park Jiho, not because you're convenient, because you're exactly what we need. It wasn't an answer, but the way Minjae said it, firm, final, allowing no argument, made me believe he meant it. Whatever their reasons, they were real to them. And that terrified me more than the rejection ever had. Alpha Tajun leaned close, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for me. Child, you don't have to do this. We can find another way. Another way to what? I whispered back, unable to keep the bitterness from leaking through. Watch me sit alone at next year's ceremony? And the year after that? His face crumpled with guilt. I immediately regretted my words. None of this was his fault. He'd been kind to me in his way. But kindness didn't change facts. Kindness didn't make alphas want broken omegas. I turned back to the 3 Songpa alphas, my heart hammering against my ribs. If I accept, what happens? I just leave with you tonight? Yes, Minji said. I'd need to pack my things. Say goodbye. Pack light, Daehyun rumbled. We leave within the hour. Within the hour? Stars above. They were serious. This was really happening. I searched their faces for any sign of deception, cruelty, or the mockery I'd learned to expect. But Minja's expression remained unreadable, his amber eyes steady on mine. Sojin still wore that sharp smile. Daehyun looked like he'd never told a joke in his life. Not cruel, not kind, just determined. I need one thing from you first, I said quietly. Minja's eyebrow lifted slightly. Name it. The truth. Why are you really doing this? For a long moment, nobody spoke. The ceremony garden had gone so silent, I could hear my own pulse thundering in my ears. Then Minjae leaned down, his face close enough that only I could hear his next words. Because we need an Omega before the Autumn Council, and you need someone to choose you. We both get what we need. That's the truth. Political, transactional, a business arrangement dressed up as fate. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't even particularly kind, but it was honest. And somehow that mattered more than pretty lies. I swallowed hard. One more question. Ask, are you going to hurt me? Something shifted in Minjae's expression, a crack in that stone facade. No, he said, and this time there was something almost gentle in his voice. We're going to protect you, even from our own pack if necessary. Sojun stepped closer, his silver jewelry glinting. Though fair warning, they're going to hate you on principle. We don't exactly have a reputation for playing nice. How comforting, I muttered. I'm being honest. Seojin's smile sharpened. You want pretty lies, go back to your broken table. You want the truth? We're offering it. Daehyun's scarred hands flexed. Songpa isn't like Gangnam. We don't have ceremonies and politeness. We have survival. And you think I'll survive? I couldn't help the skepticism bleeding through. We think you're tougher than you look, Minjae said. Are we wrong? I thought about 4 ceremonies. 4 years of sitting alone. 4 years of being invisible, unwanted, less than. 4 years of not breaking. No, I said finally. You're not wrong. Then accept. My hands were shaking. I clasped them together to hide it. This was madness. Complete and utter madness. But sitting alone at ceremonies year after year, watching life pass me by, that was a different kind of madness, wasn't it? Then I accept. The words fell into stunned silence. Then chaos erupted for the second time that night. Voices shouted over each other. Protests from the council. Gasps from the crowd. Cries of disbelief. Someone was demanding a formal challenge. Someone else was invoking ancient protocols. Minji ignored all of it. He pulled something from his pocket. 3 rings, actually. Dark metal etched with symbols I didn't recognize. Not traditional gold bands, but something older. Dangerous. He took my hand. His palm was warm, calloused, surprisingly gentle against my cold fingers. Park Jiho, Minjae said, his voice cutting through the noise with alpha command that made everyone fall silent. We claim you as our mate before the moon goddess and these witnesses. Do you accept this bond? Our mate, not 1 alpha. 3, the formal words, the binding words. Once spoken, once accepted, the bond would begin to form. Not the instant electric snap of true mates, but the slower, deliberate building of a chosen bond. Just as permanent, just as sacred. My grandmother used to say that chosen bonds could become just as strong as fated ones, given time and care. She said love grew where it was tended. I hope she was right. I accept this bond, I whispered. Minjay slid the first ring onto my finger. It was too large, hanging loose, but the metal warmed against my skin like it was alive. Seojin took my other hand, sliding on the second ring with a flourish. Welcome to the chaos, pretty Omega. I'm not pretty, I said automatically. You are to us. He winked. Daehyun's ring was last, heaviest, darkest. His scarred fingers were surprisingly careful as he slipped it onto my thumb. You're ours now, he said simply, and we're yours. The bond sparked to life. Not overwhelming, not all-consuming, but real. 3 threads of connection, thin but growing stronger with each passing second. I felt them, settle somewhere deep in my chest, warm and strange and absolutely terrifying. I was bonded to 3 complete strangers who were already turning to face the angry crowd, with my hand still held in Minja's. We're leaving, Minjay announced. Anyone who has a problem with that can challenge us now. Nobody moved. Whatever Songpa's reputation, the 3 of them standing together was enough to give even the bravest alpha pause. They were massive, scarred, and moved with the confidence of wolves who'd never lost a fight. Jiho needs time to gather his belongings, Alpha Tajun tried. 30 minutes, Minjay conceded. Then we're gone. He finally released my hand, giving me a slight nod toward the crowd. Go pack what matters. We'll wait here. I stumbled down the platform steps on shaking legs. The crowd parted around me, some in shock, some in pity, some in barely concealed relief that the runt was finally someone else's problem. My best friend Young-ho caught my arm as I passed, his eyes wide with disbelief. Jiho, this is insane. You can't actually leave with them. Why not? I pulled free, surprising myself with the sharpness in my voice. You got your perfect alpha match last year. Let me have mine. Even if they were far from perfect, even if this was a transaction more than a romance, even if I was absolutely terrified of what came next. Young-ho's face crumpled. I'm worried about you. I know, I softened. But I'm doing this anyway. I pushed through the crowd and ran. My apartment was only 10 minutes away, a tiny studio I'd inherited after my parents died. 10 minutes to pack up a life. 10 minutes before everything changed. I burst through the door, hands shaking so badly I could barely turn on the lights. What did you pack when leaving forever? I grabbed my backpack and started throwing things inside. Clothes, my 3 decent shirts, spare jeans, the wool sweater my mother made before she died, my father's watch, the photo of my parents on their bonding day, young and smiling and so alive. My hands stilled on that photo. What am I doing? Leaving everything I knew for 3 alphas I'd just met. 3 alphas who needed me for politics, not love. 3 alphas from a territory known for violence. A knock at the door made me jump. I opened it to find Elder Kangman standing there, slightly out of breath. He must have run after me from the ceremony. Elder, I don't have time. I know. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. His healer's bag hung from his shoulder. I'm not here to stop you. I'm here to help. Relief crashed over me so hard I almost cried. Elder Kangman moved to my small shelf and started pulling down items with practiced efficiency. Toiletries, a sewing kit, medicines. The Songpa alphas have a brutal reputation, he said quietly, but I've also heard they're fair, protective of their own. If they've claimed you, they'll honor that bond. They don't want me, I whispered, the truth spilling out. They need an Omega for some political reason. The Autumn Council, Minji said. This isn't about me at all. Elder Kangman paused, meeting my eyes. Then make it about you. You're cleverer than any wolf in this pack gives you credit for. You've survived being unwanted your entire life. That takes strength most will never understand. He pressed items into my hands. Use that strength now. Show Songpa what Gangnam was too blind to see. What if I can't? The fear finally broke through. What if I'm just as weak as everyone thinks? You're not weak. You're a late bloomer. Elder Kangman gripped my shoulders firmly. Your wolf is growing. I've seen it. Someday soon, Jiho, you're going to shift fully. And when you do, you're going to be magnificent. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe I was more than the runt everyone saw. Also, he reached into his bag and pulled out small packets of herbs. Take these. Valerian for sleep, willow bark for pain, yarrow for wounds. His voice dropped. And pennyroyal, just in case you need to prevent. My cheeks burned. Elder, I'm a healer. It's my job to prepare you for every possibility. His expression was grave. I don't think they'll force themselves on you, but you're going into an unknown territory with unknown alphas. Better to have options. The reality crashed over me again. I was leaving with 3 strangers, to a place where I'd have no allies, no protection except from the very males who might become my greatest threat. I'm terrified, I admitted. Good. Fear keeps you alert. Elder Kangmin tied my backpack closed. But don't let it paralyze you. You have a mind sharper than most, a healer's knowledge from helping at the clinic, and now bonds to 3 alphas. Those are weapons if you're clever enough to use them. A sharp knock at the door made us both jump. Time! Daehyun's deep voice carried through the wood. My heart lurched. Elder Kangmin pulled me into a quick embrace. Write to me if you can. Let me know you're safe. I will. Another knock, more insistent. I shouldered my pack, took one last look around the apartment. The water stain on the ceiling, the loose floorboard by the window, the life I was leaving behind, and opened the door. All 3 alphas stood in the hallway. Minjae reached out and took my pack, slinging it over his shoulder like it weighed nothing. Ready? He asked. No, not even remotely. I looked up at him. But let's go anyway. Something that might have been approval flickered in his eyes. The walk back felt like a funeral march. Wolves lined the streets, watching. Some whispered, some stared openly. I kept my chin up through sheer force of will. Alpha Tajun waited at the territory boundary, his expression troubled. He pressed a small pouch into my hands. Money. Not much, but enough to get you home if you need it. The kindness nearly broke me. Thank you, Alpha. Councilman Junho stood nearby, arms crossed. This is highly irregular. Life is irregular, Seojin said cheerfully. Get used to disappointment. I bit back a laugh. Maybe these alphas weren't so bad after all. Minja's hands settled on the small of my back, warm, possessive, protective. We're leaving now. My mates. The words sent shivers through me. We crossed into neutral territory, leaving Gangnam behind, leaving everything I'd ever known. The 3 rings on my fingers caught moonlight as we disappeared into the darkness. Behind me, my old life faded. Ahead lay the unknown. And pressed against Minjae's side, feeling the mate bonds pulse with each step, I realized something with sudden clarity. I'd traded one form of danger for another. I just prayed this danger might actually keep me alive. We walked in silence for what felt like hours. The city lights of Gangnam faded behind us, replaced by darker streets I'd never seen before. The kind of streets where streetlights flickered and died, where buildings leaned too close together, where the air tasted different, sharper, wilder. The mate bonds hummed in my chest with each step, 3 distinct threads pulling me forward. Minjae walked slightly ahead, his shoulders squared like he was ready for battle. Seojin kept pace beside me, his silver jewelry catching what little light remained. Daehyun brought up the rear, silent and watchful. I was surrounded by them. Protected or trapped, I wasn't sure which. How much further? I asked, breaking the silence. My voice came out smaller than intended. Another hour on foot, Minjae said without turning around. We'll cross the Han River soon. The river. The boundary between territories. Between my old life and whatever came next. Could have brought a car, I muttered. Just saying. Seojin laughed, bright and unexpected. Oh, we have cars. Minjae just likes the dramatic walk. It's not drama, Minjae said flatly. It's protocol. New bonds need to form without interference. Walking helps. Sure, that's definitely why. Seojin winked at me. Not because our alpha likes brooding in the moonlight. I bit back a smile. Maybe Seojin would make this bearable. You're chatty, I observed. Someone has to be. These 2 are about as talkative as stones. He gestured between Minjae and Daehyun. I provide the sparkling personality. Is that what you call it? Daehyun rumbled from behind us. See? He speaks. Seojin threw his hands up. Mark this moment, Omega. It's rare. Stop calling me Omega, I said before I could stop myself. I have a name. Seojin's expression shifted, something like approval flickering across his face. Fair enough. Jiho it is. We reached the river 20 minutes later. The Han stretched wide and dark before us, the water reflecting scattered city lights like fallen stars. A pedestrian bridge arched across it, empty at this hour. Minji paused at the bridge entrance, turning to face me. Last chance, he said quietly. Once we cross, you're in Songpa territory. Committed. If you're going to run, do it now. I looked back toward Gangnam. Somewhere in that direction was my tiny apartment, my broken table at ceremonies. 4 years of sitting alone. Then I looked at the 3 alphas waiting for my answer. I'm not running, I said. Minji studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded and started across the bridge. The walk over felt endless. My legs ached. My backpack straps dug into my shoulders, even though Minji had taken most of the weight. The mate bonds pulsed with each step, growing stronger, more insistent. Halfway across, something strange happened. The air shifted. It wasn't physical, not wind or temperature, but I felt it anyway, like walking through an invisible curtain. The bonds in my chest flared hot for a second, then settled into a new rhythm. What was that? I gasped. Territory boundary, Daehyun said. You felt it because you're bonded to us now. Your body recognizes Songpa. That's unsettling. You'll get used to it. Seojun's voice had lost some of its lightness. Everything's different on this side of the river, Jiho. Rules, laws, even the air tastes different. He wasn't wrong. Songpa smelled like pine and stone, and something darker I couldn't name. The buildings here were older, closer together, no pretty string lights or carefully maintained gardens, just raw city, all edges and shadows. We walked deeper into the territory. I saw wolves occasionally, moving through the darkness with purposeful silence. They all stopped to stare at us. At me. None of them looked friendly. They're staring, I whispered. Of course they are, Minji said. You're the first Omega we've brought home in 3 years. What happened to the last one? Silence. That was answer enough. My stomach dropped. Did he die? No, Seojin said quickly. He left. Couldn't handle it here. Went back to his birth pack within a month. Comforting. I'm being honest. Seojin's expression was serious now. Songpa isn't easy, Jiho. We don't coddle weakness. We don't do ceremonies and politeness. If you survive here, you'll earn it. And if I don't, then you leave, Minja said bluntly. We won't force you to stay somewhere you can't handle. But we also won't make it easy just because you're Omega. Great. From one rejection to another. At least this time I knew what I was walking into. The pack house came into view gradually. Not a house, really. More like a fortress built into the side of a hill, all stone and steel and sharp angles. Lights glowed in narrow windows. Wolves moved on the grounds, training even at this hour. Everything here looked ready for war. Home sweet home, Seojin said dryly. A woman waited on the steps, tall, powerful, with short dark hair and a scar cutting through her left eyebrow. She wore training gear and had the build of someone who could snap me in half without breaking a sweat. Her eyes swept over me with open contempt. So this is the famous Omega? She said, voice dripping disdain. Minja, you could have at least chosen someone who looks like he can survive a week here. Hana, Minja's voice held a warning. What? I'm being honest. Hana crossed her arms. He's tiny. Looks like a strong breeze would break him. I'm standing right here, I said flatly, and I have ears. Hana's eyebrow lifted. It talks back. Interesting. It has a name, I shot back. Jiho, use it. Seojun made a choking sound that might have been a laugh. Hana studied me with new interest. You've got a mouth on you. That'll either save you or get you killed here. I'll take my chances. Something that might have been respect flickered across her face. The council's waiting in the main hall. They're invoking assessment rights. Minja's expression darkened. Of course they are. What's assessment rights? I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I didn't want to know. Pack law, Hana answered before Minji could. When an alpha brings a new Omega into the pack, The council can test whether he's worthy, assess his strength, knowledge, value. And if I fail, most do. Hana's smile was sharp. Then the bond dissolves and you go home. The ground shifted beneath my feet. I'd thought the bond was permanent, sacred, but apparently in Songpa, even that could be taken away. This is insane, I breathed. This is Songpa. Daehyun's hand settled on my shoulder, heavy but steadying. Welcome to the pack. Minji turned to face me fully, his amber eyes intense. You don't have to do this, Jiho. We can turn around right now. Take you back to Gangnam. But you need an Omega before the Autumn Council, I said. We'll find another way. He was giving me an out, permission to run without guilt, which somehow made me more determined to stay. What does the assessment involve? I asked. Hana's smile widened. 3 tests over 3 days. Combat, knowledge, endurance. Pass all 3 and you're accepted. Fail even 1 and you're out. 3 tests. 3 days. I looked at Minjae, Seojun, and Daehyun. 3 alphas who'd chosen me when nobody else would. 3 bonds humming in my chest. Fragile and new and absolutely terrifying. I'll do it, I said. Jiho, Minjae started. I said I'll do it. I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze. I didn't survive 4 ceremonies and walk across the river just to give up at the first obstacle. If your pack wants to test me, fine. Let them test me. Seojun was grinning now. Oh, I really like him. You might not after the combat test, Hana said. I'm your opponent, Omega, and I don't pull punches. Good, I said, voice steadier than I felt. I wouldn't want you to. It was a lie. I absolutely wanted her to pull punches. But I'd learned long ago that showing fear in front of predators was a death sentence. Fake confidence until it became real. That was survival. Hana laughed, sharp and approving. All right then, council's waiting. Let's see if you're as tough as you talk. We walked into the pack house together. The interior was exactly what I expected. Austere, functional, dominated by weapons on the walls and pack hierarchy charts. Everything spoke of survival, strength, power as the only currency that mattered. The main hall was filled with wolves. Dozens of them, all turning to stare as we entered. Their eyes tracked me like I was prey that had wandered into a den of hunters. 5 wolves sat at a raised table. The council, 3 men, 2 women, all older and radiating authority. They stood as we approached, showing respect for Minja's position, but their eyes on me held nothing but skepticism. The eldest man spoke first, gray-haired with a scar running from his temple to his jaw. Alpha Minjae, we heard you found an Omega at the Gangnam ceremony. Not found, Minjae said. Chose. Chose this? One of the women said, her voice sharp. She was middle-aged with calculating eyes. He looks like he'd blow away in a storm. Looks can be deceiving, Seojun said lightly. Can they? The woman's gaze never left me. The council invokes assessment rights. We must know what he brings to Songpa. He brings himself, Minjae said, steel in his voice. That's enough. No, the scarred man said firmly. It's not. You know our ways, Minjae. You rebuilt this pack by enforcing our laws. You can't ignore them now because they're inconvenient. The trap was elegant. If Minjae fought too hard for me, he'd undermine his own authority, prove he gave special treatment while demanding everyone else earn their place. I stepped forward before he could respond. What does the assessment involve? 5 pairs of eyes fixed on me with surprise. Apparently they hadn't expected me to speak. The scarred man leaned back, studying me. 3 tests over 3 days. Combat, knowledge, endurance. Pass all 3 and you're accepted as pack. Fail even 1. He shrugged. You leave. The bonds dissolve. That's not how bonds work, I protested. It is here, the calculating woman said. Bonds can be severed if both parties agree, or if the council rules them invalid. We've done it before. My hands clenched into fists. Everything I'd walked away from, everything I'd risked, all of it could be taken away because some council decided I wasn't good enough. Story of my life, really. When do we start? I asked, surprised by how steady my voice came out. Bold, the scarred man said. I like that. First test begins tomorrow at noon. Combat. You'll face Hana in the training yard. Not to death, Daehyun said, his voice hard as stone. No, to submission or unconsciousness. The man smiled without warmth. Standard dominance fight. I was going to lose. We all knew it, but at least I could control how I lost. I understand, I said. Good. The calculating woman's eyes gleamed. Get some rest, Omega. You're going to need it. The council dismissed us. As we filed out, I felt the weight of every stare, heard the whispers starting. He won't last a day. Did you see how small he is? Minjae must be desperate. Minjae's hand found the small of my back again, that now familiar gesture of possession and protection. You didn't have to agree, he said quietly as we climbed stairs to the upper levels. Yes, I did. I looked up at him. What choice did I have? Say no and prove I'm too weak before I even try? You could have gone home. I don't have a home anymore. The truth came out sharper than intended. I have this. 3 alphas who need me for politics and a pack that wants me to fail. It's not great, but it's what I've got. Sujin made a soft sound. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. It's honest. Honesty doesn't make it less sad. We stopped at a door. Minji pushed it open, revealing a room that was surprisingly normal. Large bed, windows overlooking the city, simple furniture. Not a prison, not a palace, just a room. This is yours, Minji said. You'll stay here tonight. Rest. Tomorrow. He trailed off. Tomorrow I get my ass kicked by Hana, I finished. I know. You don't have to be brave all the time, Daehyun rumbled. Yes, I do. I set my backpack down, exhaustion finally crashing over me. Because the second I stop being brave, I'll remember how terrifying this all is. And then I'll break. The 3 of them stood in the doorway, backlit by hall lights. My mates, strangers who'd chosen me for all the wrong reasons. Get some sleep, Minji said. We'll be nearby if you need anything. They started to leave. Wait. They paused. Thank you, I said quietly, for choosing me. Even if it was just politics, even if this whole thing is insane, thank you for not leaving me at that table. Minji's expression softened. We didn't choose politics, Jiho. We chose you. There's a difference. Then they were gone, closing the door softly behind them. I stood alone in the strange room in a strange territory, bonded to 3 strange alphas. The rings on my fingers caught moonlight from the window. Tomorrow I'd face Hana. Tomorrow I'd probably lose. But tonight, for the first time in 4 years, I wasn't sitting alone at a ceremony. Tonight I belong somewhere. Even if that somewhere wanted to test me until I broke. I just had to make sure I didn't. Sleep didn't come. I lay in the unfamiliar bed staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster. 73. I'd counted them twice now, trying to distract myself from the mate bonds humming in my chest. 3 distinct threads, each one pulling toward a different direction in this strange building. Minja's bond felt like granite, solid, unmovable. Seojin's thrummed with restless energy, like electricity under skin. Daehyun's was the quietest but heaviest, a weight that promised both danger and protection. They were close. I could feel them through the bonds, awake like me. Probably worrying, probably regretting their choice already. I rolled onto my side, pulling the blanket tighter. The fabric smelled like pine and smoke. Nothing like my lavender detergent back home. Everything here was sharp edges and unfamiliar textures. A soft knock made me jump. Jiho? Seojun's voice came through the door. You awake? I considered pretending to sleep, decided against it. Unfortunately, the door opened. Seojin slipped inside, closing it quietly behind him. He changed into loose sleep pants and a shirt that hung off one shoulder, silver jewelry still glinting at his throat. Even dressed for bed, he looked dangerous. Can't sleep either? He asked, settling onto the edge of my bed without asking permission. Turns out moving to a hostile territory with 3 strange alphas isn't great for relaxation. Who knew? He laughed, soft and genuine. Fair point. We sat in silence for a moment. Through the window, I could see Songpa sprawling below us, all shadows and scattered lights. So different from Gangnam's organized glow. Why did you really choose me? I asked quietly. And don't say politics. I want the real reason. Seojin was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he sighed. Because we're running out of time, he said. The Autumn Council is in 6 weeks. Pack law says an alpha triad needs at least one bonded omega to maintain territorial rights. Without you, we lose everything we built here. So it is just politics. No? He turned to face me, his expression serious. That's the practical reason. The real reason? He paused. We saw you sitting alone at that table. Saw how you held yourself together even when everyone was staring. Saw the way you didn't break. I felt pretty broken. But you didn't show it. That takes strength. Seojin's eyes caught moonlight. We need someone strong, Jiho. Someone who won't shatter the first time Songpa shows its teeth. And you looked like you'd been chewed up and spit out already. Figured you might survive round 2. That's the worst compliment I've ever received. I'm known for my charm. Despite everything, I smiled. Is Minjae always that intense? Always. He takes everything seriously. The pack, his responsibilities, his breakfast cereal. It's exhausting. Seojun stretched out, making himself comfortable. Daehyun's the quiet one. He'll surprise you, though. Still waters and all that. And you're the chatty one who breaks into Omega's rooms at night? I prefer emotionally available and excellent at boundary crossing. He grinned. Someone has to balance out the brooding. A different knock interrupted us, heavier. The door opened again, and Daehyun filled the doorway. He looked between us, something unreadable crossing his scarred face. Seojin's bothering you, he stated. I'm providing comfort, Seojin protested. Same thing. Daehyun stepped inside. Unlike Seojin, he stayed standing, arms crossed. You should rest. Tomorrow will be hard. I know. I sat up, pulling my knees to my chest. That's why I can't sleep. My brain won't stop showing me all the ways Hana's going to destroy me. She will destroy you, Daehyun said bluntly. Helpful, thanks. But, he continued, ignoring my sarcasm, you can control how you lose. Make her work for it. Show the pack you won't break easy. That's basically what Elder Kangman said. Smart elder. Seojin shifted on the bed. You know, we could help you prepare. Few hours of training won't make you a warrior, but it might give you an edge. It's the middle of the night. So? Seojun's grin was sharp. Songpa wolves train when they need to, not when it's convenient. I looked between them. 2 of my 3 mates offering to help when they could have just left me to fail, when they'd already gotten what they needed, politically speaking. Maybe the bonds meant something after all. All right, I said, throwing off the blanket. Teach me how to lose with dignity. The training room was empty when we arrived, all steel and padding and weapons I didn't know how to use. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in harsh white. Daehyun gestured to the center mat. Stand there. I obeyed, feeling ridiculous in my sleep clothes while they both circled me like predators sizing up prey. First lesson, Daehyun said. You're going to lose. Accept it now so it doesn't break you tomorrow. Gee, thanks for the pep talk. Second lesson. He moved behind me, adjusting my stance with his hands. His touch was surprisingly gentle. Protect your throat and stomach. Those are your kill zones. Block everything else if you can, but never. Leave those exposed. What if I can't block? Then you fall smart. Roll with the impact. Don't fight physics. His scarred hands guided my arms up. Like this. See? I tried to memorize the position. Tried not to think about how close he was, how warm his hands felt on my skin. The mate bond hummed approval. Third lesson, Seojin said, stepping in front of me. Use your size. You're small, fast, probably flexible. Hana's a tank. She'll try to overpower you. Don't let her. How do I stop a tank? Don't be where the tank expects you to be. He demonstrated, moving with fluid grace. Dodge, duck, make her chase you. Tire her out. That's your strategy? Run away. Survival isn't pretty, sweetheart. Seojun's smile was sharp. It's effective. We drilled for what felt like hours. Daehyun taught me how to fall without breaking bones. Seojun taught me how to read body language, spot tells before strikes landed. Neither of them pulled punches when they demonstrated, and I hit the mat more times than I could count. But I kept getting up. Again and again, I got up. Why do you keep getting up? Daehyun asked after I'd been knocked down for the 20th time. Because lying down means I've given up. I pushed to my feet, wiping blood from my split lip. And I'm really tired of giving up. Something shifted in both their expressions. Respect, maybe, or pity, hard to tell. One more drill, Seojin said. Then you rest. This time they both came at me. Fast, coordinated, relentless. I barely blocked Seojin's strike before Daehyun swept my legs. I rolled like they taught me, but Seojin was already there, hand reaching for my throat in the killing blow. I did something without thinking. My hand shot out, and Seojin froze mid-strike. His eyes went wide, confused. What? He started. Then he stumbled back, shaking his head like clearing water from his ears. What did you just do? Daehyun's voice was sharp. I don't know. My hand was still raised, trembling. I just wanted you to stop, and then you did. The training room went silent. Seojin stared at me, something like awe creeping into his expression. Did you just get into my head? That's not possible. I'm Omega. We don't have powers like that. Most Omegas don't, Daehyun said slowly. But telepathy isn't unheard of. Rare, but not impossible. I can read minds. The idea was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. Not read, more like push. Seojin was still staring. You pushed a command into my head. Made me want to stop. Can you do it again? Daehyun asked. I tried, focused on him, tried to push the thought sit down into his mind. Nothing happened. Maybe it only works when I'm desperate, I said, lowering my hand. Or maybe it was a fluke. Or maybe you're more than the runt everyone thinks you are. Seojin's voice was soft. Maybe that's why we chose you. You didn't know about this. No, but the universe did. He grinned. Fate's funny like that. A door slammed somewhere in the building. Voices echoed through halls. The pack was waking up. Morning had come faster than I wanted. Time to face the music, Seojin said, reading my expression. You ready? No. Good answer. He offered his hand, pulling me to my feet. Let's go watch you lose spectacularly. The training yard was packed by the time we arrived. Word had spread fast. Every wolf in Songpa who could walk had gathered to watch what promised to be a spectacular humiliation. I stood at the edge of the yard, trying to control my breathing. Every muscle ached from the night's training. My split lip throbbed. The mate bonds pulsed with anxiety, all three of my alphas broadcasting their worry. Hana waited in the center, already stripped down to training gear. She looked like a war goddess. Beautiful, deadly, absolutely merciless. I was going to die. The scarred council member stepped forward. I'd learned his name last night. Councilman Taemin. By pack law and assessment rights, Taemin's voice boomed across the gathered crowd. Park Jiho will face trial by combat. The fight continues until submission, unconsciousness, or, he paused, death, though we prefer the first two options. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. My stomach twisted. Your opponent is Hana Choi, our head warrior. You may fight as human or shift. Your choice. Shifting meant revealing how pathetically small my wolf was. Fighting human meant facing a trained warrior with nothing but the basic moves I'd frantically learned last night. I chose human. At least that way the humiliation would be slightly less visible. I walked into the center of the yard on shaking legs. The crowd pressed closer, their excitement palpable. Blood sport had always drawn crowds, and I was today's entertainment. Hana circled me slowly. Predatory. Last chance to run back to Gangnam, little Omega. I'm not running. Pity. I was hoping you'd make this interesting. Taemin raised his hand. Fight begins on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Hana moved like lightning. I barely raised my arms before her first punch connected with my ribs. Pain exploded through my chest, driving the air from my lungs. I staggered back, gasping, and Hana was already there with a kick that swept my legs. I hit the ground hard. The crowd roared. Get up! Get up! Get up! I rolled to the side just as Hana's boots slammed down where my head had been. Scrambled to my feet, arms up in the defensive stance Daehyun had drilled into me. Block the throat, protect the stomach. Hana came at me again. A flurry of strikes that I could barely track, let alone block. Fists and elbows and knees, each one landing with brutal precision. My arms took most of the damage, but enough got through that I tasted blood. "Is this all you've got?" Hana taunted. "Pathetic." The crowd was chanting now, Hana's name over and over. I caught a glimpse of my alphas at the edge of the yard. Minjae's face carved from stone, Seojun looking pained, Daehyun's fists clenched at his sides. None of them would intervene, couldn't without undermining everything. I was alone in this. Hana grabbed my arm and twisted, sending me crashing to the ground again. This time she followed, knee pressing into my spine, hand fisting in my hair to wrench my head back, exposing my throat. "Submit," she growled. Every instinct screamed at me to give in, to end this torture. I was going to lose anyway. Why prolong the agony? Then I saw them, the faces in the crowd, the satisfaction, the smugness, the absolute certainty that I was weak, worthless, exactly what they expected. And something in me cracked, not broke, cracked like ice under pressure, revealing something harder beneath. "No." I twisted in Hana's grip, not breaking free, but shifting just enough to get my elbow into her ribs. It wasn't much, barely made her grunt, but it was enough to loosen her hold for a fraction of a second. I rolled, kicking out wildly. My foot connected with something, her shin, and then I was scrambling away. The crowd went quiet. I stood swaying, blood dripping from my split lip. Every part of my body screamed in pain, but I raised my fists again. "I'm not submitting." Hana's expression shifted, surprise giving way to something that might have been respect, or might have been anger at being denied an easy victory. "Your funeral," she said. She attacked again, but this time I was ready, not skilled enough to win, but determined enough to make it cost something. I blocked what I could, rolled with the hits I couldn't avoid, and refused to stay down. Again and again, Hana put me on the ground. Again and again, I got back up. The crowd's bloodlust shifted to horrified fascination. This wasn't supposed to happen. The runt was supposed to break quickly, submit like any sensible wolf outmatched by a superior opponent. But I kept getting up. "Stay down," Hana snarled, frustration leaking through her control. "Make me." I spat blood into the dust. We clashed again. This time, when she reached for me, I remembered what Seojin had taught me. Use their momentum against them. I didn't try to block her charge. Instead, I dropped and rolled, letting her own force carry her past. Hana stumbled, only for a second, but it was enough. I had 3 precious seconds to breathe, to think, to remember that I had something she didn't. I focused, reached out with my mind like I'd done last night with Seojin. "Stop, stop, stop." Hana froze mid-step. Her eyes went wide, confused, like she'd forgotten why she was moving. Then her fist caught me in the temple, and the world exploded into stars. I felt myself falling, felt the ground rushing up, felt my last bit of strength drain away like water through fingers. This time, I didn't have the power to rise. Hana's boot pressed against my throat, not choking. Not yet, but dominant. The classic submission pose. "Submit," she demanded. "Now!" My mouth moved, trying to form words. I should submit. It was over. I'd lost. Continuing would just mean more pain. But through my blurred vision, I saw him. Minjae. Not disappointment in his face, not pity, pride. I'd lost the fight, but I hadn't lost myself. I gasped against the pressure on my throat. "I submit." The words tasted like ash, but they were necessary. Fighting to unconsciousness would prove nothing except stubbornness. Hana immediately removed her boot and stepped back. The crowd erupted, some disappointed at the lack of bloodshed, others impressed despite themselves. Taemin's voice cut through the noise. "Trial by combat failed." The word hung in the air like a sentence. Failed. But then Taemin continued, and I heard something unexpected in his voice. "However, Park Jiho showed courage in the face of certain defeat. He has earned the right to attempt the second trial." I lay in the dust, too exhausted to feel relief. I'd failed, just like everyone expected. The fact that I'd made it slightly less pathetic than anticipated didn't change the outcome. Hands gripped my arms, my alphas lifting me carefully between them. I wanted to tell them I could walk, but my legs weren't cooperating. Minja carried me from the training yard. The crowd parted around us and I heard their voices. Did you see how many times he got back up? Hana actually had to work for it. Still lost, though. Yeah, but did you see? Behind us, I felt Hana's presence through the mate bonds. Not hostile anymore. Something else. As darkness pulled at my edges, I heard her voice. Quiet but caring. Kid's tougher than he looks. Then everything went black. Pain dragged me back to consciousness. Everything hurt. My ribs screamed with each breath. My face felt like tenderized meat. Even blinking sent sharp spikes through my skull. I was lying on something soft. A bed. The room smelled like antiseptic and pine. He's waking up. Seojun's voice close by. I forced my eyes open. The world swam into focus slowly, revealing three faces hovering over me with varying degrees of concern. There he is, Seojun said, relief bleeding through his usual lightness. Welcome back to the land of the conscious. Did I die? My voice came out like gravel. Almost. That was Dae-hyun, standing by the window with his arms crossed. You have 3 cracked ribs, extensive bruising, and a concussion. Fantastic. I feel fantastic. You look like you got hit by a truck, Minji said. He sat in a chair, beside the bed close enough that I could feel his presence through the mate bond. A very angry Hana-shaped truck. I tried to sit up. My ribs immediately vetoed that decision. Don't move, a new voice commanded. An elderly woman appeared in my line of sight, gray-haired with sharp eyes and gentle hands. You need rest. And these. She held up a cup of something that smelled like death. Drink. What is it? Painkillers, willow bark tea, some other things you don't need to know about. She pressed the cup into my hands. Drink, or I'll make your alphas hold you down while I pour it down your throat. I drank. It tasted worse than it smelled. The woman nodded in satisfaction. Good boy. I'm Yoonji, the pack healer. You're lucky nothing's broken beyond repair. Lucky, I repeated flatly. That's definitely the word I'd use. Yoonji's mouth twitched. Might have been a smile. You've got spirit. That's good. You'll need it for what comes next. Right. The second trial. When? I asked. Tomorrow morning, Minjae said. The council agreed to give you recovery time. 1 day between trials. 1 day to heal from Hana's beating before facing whatever fresh hell they design next. What's the second trial? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Knowledge, Seojun said. They'll test your understanding of pack law, survival skills, history, basically anything they think you should know to be part of Songpa. So the opposite of the physical trial, this one tests my brain. Your one actual strength, Dae-hyun rumbled. I looked at him surprised. You think I'm smart? You got into Seojun's head last night, made him freeze mid-strike. Dae-hyun's scarred face was unreadable. That takes intelligence and control most wolves don't have. The telepathy thing. I'd almost forgotten about that in the chaos of the fight. Can we talk about that? Seojun settled on the edge of my bed, careful not to jostle me, because that was equal parts impressive and terrifying. I don't know how I did it, I admitted. It just happened. I wanted you to stop, and then you did. That's telepathic persuasion, Unji said, checking my bandages with practiced efficiency. Rare ability, very rare for omegas. Is it useful? Could be, if you learn to control it. She finished her examination and stood. Rest now. Tomorrow's trial won't be physical, but it'll be exhausting in different ways. She left, closing the door softly. Silence settled over the room. I could feel my alpha's anxiety through the bonds, all 3 of them radiating concern they didn't know how to voice. You fought well, Minji said finally. I lost. You lasted 15 minutes against our best warrior. Most wolves don't last 5. Participation trophy. Great. It's not about winning, Dae-hyun said. It's about showing you won't break. You did that. I wanted to believe them, wanted to feel proud instead of humiliated. But my body was one massive bruise, and I'd still failed. The pack is talking about you, Seojun offered. In a good way mostly. They're calling you the Omega who wouldn't stay down. Catchy. Better than the runt. His eyes were serious. You're changing their minds, Jiho. One painful trial at a time. A soft knock interrupted us. The door opened, and Hana stepped inside. I tensed instinctively. My body remembered her fists, even if my brain was trying to be rational. Relax, Omega. I'm not here to finish what I started. She moved to the foot of the bed, her expression unreadable. Came to see if you survived. Barely. You did better than most. She crossed her arms. I've fought a lot of wolves in that yard. Most submit after the first real hit. You kept getting up. I'm stubborn like that. Something that might have been respect flickered across her face. Stubborn or suicidal? Haven't decided which yet. Can't it be both? She laughed, sharp and unexpected. I like you, Omega. You've got bite. She glanced at my alphas. He'll do, if he survives the next 2 trials. He will, Minji said with certainty. We'll see. Hana headed for the door, then paused. For what it's worth, that thing you did at the end, making me hesitate, that was clever, unexpected. Use that in the knowledge trial. They'll try to catch you off guard. Don't let them. Then she was gone. Did she just give me advice? I asked the room. Hana respects fighters, Daehyun said. You proved you're one, even if you lost. The door opened again. This time a young wolf poked his head in. Couldn't have been more than 20, with nervous eyes and a tray of food. Alpha Minjae asked me to bring dinner, he said quietly, for the Omega. I have a name, I said automatically. Jiho. The young wolf's eyes widened. Yes, Jiho. Sorry, I'm Junho. He set the tray on the bedside table. Everyone's talking about you, about the fight. I lost. You made Hana work for it. Nobody does that. Junho's admiration was obvious. You're like a legend already. A legend who got his ass kicked. A legend who didn't quit. He smiled. That matters here. After he left, I stared at the food. Rice, soup, grilled meat. Simple but nourishing. My stomach growled despite the pain. Eat, Minjae commanded. You need strength for tomorrow. I ate slowly, each swallow sending protests through my battered body. But I ate, because he was right. Tomorrow would be hard in different ways. Tell me about the knowledge trial, I said between bites. What kind of questions? Pack law? Definitely, Shojin said. They'll ask about hierarchy, bonding traditions, territorial rights, trying to catch you admitting you don't belong here. History of Songpa, Minjae added, when the pack was founded, major battles, leadership, succession. Survival skills, Daehyun finished. How to handle injuries, find food, defend territory. Basic things every pack member should know. That's a lot to memorize in one night. Then don't memorize, Shojin said. Understand. They're not looking for perfect answers. They're looking for wolves who can think. And they're looking for reasons to fail you. Minja's voice was hard. Councilwoman Soyeon especially. She wanted her son to be our Omega. When we chose you instead, she took it personally. Great. An enemy on the council. The others? I asked. Taemin is fair but rigid, Minji said. He'll test you thoroughly but won't sabotage you. Councilman Hyunwoo handles pack finances. He cares more about numbers than politics. Councilwoman Minji manages territory disputes. She's practical. And Councilman Jinho oversees training. He's quiet but observant. So I had one definite enemy, one potential ally, and 3 unknowns. Not the worst odds. What happens if I fail? I asked quietly. The question hung in the air like smoke. The bonds dissolve, Minji said finally. You go back to Gangnam. We find another way to satisfy the council's requirements. Just like that? After everything, just like that. His amber eyes held mine. But you're not going to fail. You sound sure. I am. Because you're smarter than anyone in that council room gives you credit for. He leaned forward. Use that tomorrow. Show them what Gangnam was too stupid to see. The conviction in his voice made something warm bloom in my chest. Not love, not yet, but trust, belief. Maybe that was enough. All right, I said. Then help me prepare. I have one night to learn everything about Songpa. Let's make it count. We spent hours going through everything. Minjae explained pack law with patient detail. Seojin told stories of Songpa's founding. making history come alive. Daehyun covered survival skills with practical efficiency. My head spun with information, dates, names, laws, treaties. By the time they finally forced me to rest, my brain felt as bruised as my body. But I'd learned, absorbed, understood. Tomorrow I'd face the council. Tomorrow I'd prove I was more than the runt everyone saw. Sleep came easier this time, pulled under by exhaustion and painkillers. The mate bonds hummed steadily in my chest, all three of my alphas staying close, even in sleep. I dreamed of questions with no answers, of standing before crowds that laughed, of failing again and again. But in the dreams, I kept getting up. I woke to gray morning light filtering through curtains. Every muscle still screamed, but the pain was manageable, dulled by whatever Unji had given me. Minjae was already awake, sitting in the same chair beside my bed. He looked like he hadn't slept, dark circles under his eyes. "You stayed," I said. "Of course I stayed. You're my mate. Political mate." "Mate," he repeated firmly. "The politics are convenient. The bond is real." He helped me sit up slowly, supporting my weight. The room spun for a second, then settled. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Like I got in a fight with a mountain and lost." "Close. You got in a fight with Hana." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Most people can't tell the difference." Sojun and Daehyun appeared with clothes, clean, simple, appropriate for facing the council. They helped me dress without commenting on how I winced with every movement. "Ready?" Sojun asked when I was finally presentable. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." "That's becoming your catchphrase," Daehyun observed. We walked to the Great Hall together. My legs were steadier than yesterday, but each step still sent jolts through my ribs. The mate bonds hummed with nervous energy, all three of my alphas broadcasting their anxiety. The Great Hall was even more packed than for the combat trial. Apparently, knowledge trials were just as entertaining. The council sat at their long table, elevated so they could look down on whoever stood before them. I saw Councilwoman Soyeon's satisfied smirk and felt my resolve harden. I would not give her the satisfaction of watching me crumble. Timon stood as we approached. "Park Jiho, you have passed the first trial through demonstration of courage. Today you face the second trial. Knowledge. You will answer questions about pack law, history, and survival. 3 failures mean elimination. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Then let us begin." I stepped forward, leaving my alphas behind. This trial I'd face alone. Soyeon leaned forward immediately, her voice sharp as glass. "First question, recite the 3 primary laws of pack hierarchy." Easy. Minjae had drilled these into me last night. First law, the alpha's word is final in matters of pack security and survival. Second law, strength earns rank, but rank carries responsibility to protect those beneath you. Third law, challenges for position must be witnessed and fair, or the challenger faces exile. Soyeon's smile tightened. "Correct. Second question, what are the grounds for dissolving a mate bond?" Here was the trap. She wanted me to admit there were legitimate reasons to dissolve my bond with the alphas. I kept my voice steady. According to ancient law, a mate bond can be dissolved through mutual agreement, death of one party, or council ruling in cases of severe harm or betrayal that threatens pack stability. I paused, then added carefully, "However, council rulings on bond dissolution are rare and require unanimous vote, as interfering with mate bonds is considered a grave action against the moon goddess's will." I'd found that last part in one of the older texts Minji had shown me. Soyeon's expression soured. She'd hoped I wouldn't know about the unanimous vote requirement. "Correct," she bit out. Taemin took the next question. "Name the 3 territories that border Songpa and the treaties that govern our relationships." I drew on the history Seojin had taught me. To the north, Dobong Pak under Alpha Kiwon. We have a non-aggression treaty established after the River Wars. To the east, neutral territory governed by Interpack law. To the south, Gangnam Pak. I kept my voice neutral. With whom we maintain peaceful relations through trade agreements. And to the west, the mountain territory claimed by Gwanak Pak. Our most contentious border, with disputes settled through the Territorial Council. Correct. Taemin nodded, something like approval in his eyes. The questions continued. Hyunwoo asked about Pak finances and resource management. Minji questioned me on territorial dispute resolution. Jiho asked about weapons and training protocols. An hour passed. Then two. My throat grew dry from talking, but I hadn't failed a single question yet. I could see the frustration building on Soyeon's face, the growing respect on Taemin's. The crowd had gone quiet, leaning forward to hear every question and answer. Survival question, Soyeon said abruptly. A pack member is bitten by a silver-tipped weapon. What's your immediate treatment? Silver poisoning, deadly to werewolves if not treated quickly. I pulled from Elder Kangman's lessons in the text I'd studied last night. First, shift the victim to human form if possible. Healing is faster. Second, remove the weapon carefully. Silver barbs often break off. Cut around it if necessary. Third, pack the wound with yarrow to slow bleeding. Fourth, create a poultice of activated charcoal and honey to draw out poison. Fifth, keep the victim hydrated and monitored for silver sickness, fever, seizures, organ failure. I paused. And pray. Silver poisoning has a 30% fatality rate, even with perfect treatment. Yoonji, standing in the crowd, nodded approvingly. Soyeon looked like she'd swallowed something bitter. Correct. The trial continued. 3 hours in, my concentration wavered. The questions grew more obscure, more technical. I stumbled slightly on a question about ancient succession laws, catching myself just in time. Not a failure. Not yet. Final question, Taemin announced. My heart leaped. Final question meant I'd made it this far without 3 failures. This one comes from all of us. The council members exchanged glances. Even Soyeon nodded. You've proven you can memorize facts. Now prove you understand what it means to be part of this pack. Taemin's eyes were serious. In your own words, what is Songpa's greatest strength and its greatest weakness? Not a factual question, an opinion, a trap, because any answer could offend someone. I took a breath, thinking carefully. The crowd held its breath with me. Songpa's greatest strength, I said slowly, is that you demand excellence. You don't accept excuses or coddle weakness. You've built a pack of survivors who can handle anything because you've taught them they have to. I paused, meeting each council member's eyes. Your greatest weakness is that same strength taken too far. You're so focused on being hard that you sometimes forget to be kind. You test everyone so ruthlessly that you might break someone who just needs time to grow. My voice grew firmer. I'm that someone. I'm the wolf you would have discarded as useless. But I'm also the wolf who got back up 15 times yesterday, who studied until my eyes burned last night, who will keep fighting for my place here no matter how many times you knock me down. I looked directly at Soyeon. Your weakness is that you almost missed what I could become because you were too focused on what I am right now. Silence crashed over the hall. I just criticized Songpa, their traditions, their methods, their pride, in front of the entire pack. It was either the bravest or stupidest thing I'd ever done. Taemin stared at me for a long moment. Then slowly he began to smile. Well, Taemin said, and I heard genuine warmth in his voice. That's certainly an answer. My heart hammered against my battered ribs. I'd either just secured my place or signed my death warrant. Hard to tell which. Is it correct? I asked, genuinely unsure. There is no correct answer to an opinion question, Soyeon snapped. Her knuckles were white against the table edge. But it's honest, Taemin interrupted, his eyes never leaving mine. And it shows understanding of who we are, both our light and shadow. He looked at the other council members. I vote to pass him on the second trial. Agreed, Hyunwoo said immediately. Agreed, Minji added. Agreed, Jiho said quietly. All eyes turned to Soyeon. She looked like she wanted to refuse, to find some technicality that would fail me despite everything. But she was trapped by the council's own rules. Agreed, she finally bit out. He passes. Relief hit me so hard my knees nearly buckled. Taemin stood, his voice carrying across the hall. Park Jiho has passed the second trial through demonstration of knowledge and wisdom. He has earned the right to attempt the third and final trial. The crowd erupted. Not all cheers, but enough genuine celebration that warmth spread through my chest. I'd done it. 2 trials down. 1 more to go. Minjae was there suddenly, steadying me with a hand on my elbow. You did it, he murmured, and I heard genuine pride in his voice. One more, I whispered back. What's the third trial? His expression darkened. Endurance. The word sent ice through my veins. Seojin pushed through the crowd, grinning. That was incredible. Did you see Soyeon's face? I thought she was going to explode. What's endurance? I asked, needing to know, needing to prepare. The three of them exchanged glances. Whatever was coming, they were worried about it. Let's talk somewhere private, Daehyun said. We left the hall, the crowd parting around us. I heard whispers following us out. 2 trials passed. Nobody expected that. Maybe he really does belong here. The third trial, though, that's the hardest. My room felt both too large and too small when we returned. I sat on the bed, every muscle protesting. The adrenaline from the trial was fading, leaving behind pain and exhaustion. Tell me, I said, what is the endurance trial? Minji settled into the chair he'd occupied last night. Seojin and Daehyun flanked the bed like guards. You'll be isolated, Minji said carefully. Alone in the wilderness for 3 days and nights. Nothing but the clothes on your back. You have to survive and return by the 3rd dawn. That doesn't sound so terrible. I know basic survival. That's not the hard part. Seojun's usual lightness was gone. The hard part is the choice. On the 2nd night, the council sends someone with an offer. Come back now. Admit you can't handle Songpa and leave with dignity. Or stay out there alone and prove you belong. Understanding dawned cold and heavy. It's a test of commitment. They want to see if I'll quit. Most do, Daehyun rumbled. When you're cold, hungry, alone in the dark with nothing but your thoughts, doubt becomes louder than any physical pain. And there's something else, Minjae added, his expression grave. The mate bonds will hurt. Distance strains new bonds. You'll feel disconnected, like part of you is missing. That's intentional. Another layer of the test. Even though we barely know each other, the bond doesn't care about logic. It just knows you're supposed to be together. His amber eyes were serious. 3 days might not sound long, but it'll feel like forever. I processed this. 3 days alone. 3 days of physical discomfort and emotional pain. 3 days with nothing but my own mind for company. When does it start? Tonight, Minjae said. At sunset, you'll be escorted to the boundary and released. Tonight? I just finished a 3-hour mental marathon. The trials don't wait for convenience, Daehyun said. That's part of the test too. Can you endure when you're already exhausted? Of course they wouldn't give me recovery time. Why make anything easy? There's something you should know, Seojin said quietly. The mate bond pain, it goes both ways. We'll feel it too, all 3 of us. I looked between them. You'll hurt because of me. We'll hurt because we're separated from our mate, Minjae corrected. That's different. I could refuse, I said. Save all of us the pain. You could. Minjae leaned forward. But I don't think you will, because you didn't come this far to give up now. He was right. I hated that he was right. Can I ask you something? I met his eyes. If I fail this trial, if I choose to come back early, would you think less of me? For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke, and his honesty cut like glass. No, I'd understand. This pack asks too much sometimes, I know that. He paused. But I need you to understand something too. If you quit, I won't think less of you. I'll just know that Songpa isn't where you're meant to be. And that's okay. What if I want it to be where I'm meant to be? Something shifted in his expression, softer, more vulnerable. Then stay out there. Suffer through it. Come back on the 3rd dawn and claim your place. His voice dropped. But only if it's what you truly want, not what you think we want, not what the pack expects, what you want. I looked at all 3 of them. My mates, strangers who'd chosen me for convenience, but were starting to feel like something more. I want to belong somewhere, I said quietly. I want to matter to someone, even if the someone is a pack of violent wolves who test me until I break. You won't break, Seojin said with surprising conviction. Bruise maybe, crack a little, but not break. How do you know? Because breaking is what you do when you give up. And you, Park Jiho, are stupidly, stubbornly incapable of giving up. Despite everything, I smiled. That's still the worst compliment. I stand by it. A knock at the door interrupted us. Yunji entered without waiting for permission, carrying her healer's bag and a stern expression. Stop hovering, she told my alphas. I need to check his wounds before you send him into the wilderness, like an idiot. The trials are traditional, Minji said. The trials are barbaric. She shooed them away from the bed. But since I can't stop them, I can at least make sure he doesn't die of infection. She examined me with brisk efficiency, tutting over bruises and rewrapping my ribs. Her hands were surprisingly gentle despite her sharp words. You're healing faster than expected, she muttered. Omega resilience, maybe. Or pure stubbornness, keeping you upright? Definitely stubbornness. She pulled packets from her bag. Take these. Herbs for pain, for sleep if you need it. And this. She pressed something small and hard into my palm. A compass. For finding your way back. Is that allowed? No one said you couldn't have a compass. Her eyes twinkled. They said no supplies. Navigation tools aren't supplies. I closed my fingers around it. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you survive. She packed up her bag. And Jiho, remember that strength isn't just physical. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit when you need help. She left before I could ask what she meant. The hours until sunset crawled by. I tried to rest, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. 3 days. 3 days alone with nothing but survival skills I'd learned from books, and the crushing weight of 3 mate bonds pulling at my chest. I must have dozed because the next thing I knew, Daehyun was shaking me gently. Time, he said. Sunset already. The sky outside had turned orange and purple, beautiful and ominous. They walked me to the territory boundary in silence. The entire pack gathered to watch, tradition demanding witnesses. I felt their eyes on me, some curious, some hostile, some genuinely concerned. We reached the edge where Songpa territory bled into wilderness. The forest beyond looked darker, wilder, dangerous. Taemin waited with the formal words. Park Jiho, you face the third trial. Endurance. 3 days alone in the wilderness. Return by the third dawn and claim your place among us. Fail, and you leave Songpa forever. I understand. Then go. May the moon goddess guide your path. I looked back once at my alphas. Minjae stood rigid, jaw clenched. Seojun's usual smile was nowhere in sight. Daehyun's fists were tight at his sides. Through the bonds, I felt their worry, their fear, their hope. See you in 3 days, I said, trying for confidence. Then I turned and walked into the wilderness alone. The forest swallowed me within minutes. Trees pressed close, blocking out the dying light. The temperature dropped immediately, cold seeping through my thin clothes. I walked for an hour, putting distance between myself and Songpa. Following the compass Yunji had given me, heading roughly north where I remembered seeing a stream on the territory maps. The mate bonds ached already, 3 threads pulling back toward the pack, back toward safety. I ignored them and kept walking. Night fell fast. The moon rose nearly full, casting silver shadows through the trees. I found the stream by sound before sight, following the burble of water over stones. Good. Water was the first priority. I knelt by the stream and drank deeply, the cold shocking my system. Then I focused on shelter. Found a rocky overhang that would protect from wind and rain. Gathered pine boughs for insulation, like my father had taught me years ago. Building a fire took longer. My hands shook from cold and exhaustion, but I finally coaxed flame from friction. The warmth was immediate and blessed. I sat by my fire, arms wrapped around my knees, and felt the isolation set in. No voices, no movement, just me and the forest and the mate, bonds screaming in my chest. The pain wasn't physical yet, just a dull throb, like a bruise beginning to form. But I could feel it growing with each passing hour. Somewhere miles away, my alphas felt it too. I hoped they were handling it better than I was. The night stretched endless. I dozed fitfully, jerking awake at every crack of branches, every distant howl. Things moved in the darkness. Wolves that weren't pack. Predators that saw me as prey. I fed my fire and tried not to think about how alone I was. Dawn came as a relief. Gray light filtered through trees, chasing away some of the shadows and fears. Day 1. 2 more to go. I caught a fish in the stream using a makeshift spear. Not enough food, but enough to keep functioning. Found berries, testing each carefully for poison before eating. The mate bonds ached worse now. A constant pull back toward Songpa, back toward my alphas. My chest felt hollow, like something essential had been carved out. But I endured. Hours blurred together. I walked the area around my camp, memorizing landmarks, gathered more wood for the fire, tried to keep my mind occupied so I wouldn't focus on the pain. It didn't work. By the time night fell again, the bond pain had sharpened into something almost unbearable. Not physical, but emotional. A grief so profound it took my breath away. I'd known these alphas for days. Days. How could separation hurt this much? But the bond didn't care about logic. It just knew I was supposed to be with them, and I wasn't. I huddled by my fire, shivering despite the flames, and I let myself feel it. The loneliness, the doubt, the fear that I'd made a terrible mistake. What was I doing out here? Suffering for a pack that would probably never fully accept me? For alphas who'd chosen me out of necessity? Maybe I should just go back. Accept the offer when it came. Leave with whatever dignity I had left. The thoughts circled like vultures. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Someone was coming. I stood, heart racing, hand reaching instinctively for a stick I'd sharpened earlier. The footsteps grew closer, deliberate, not trying to hide. A figure emerged from the darkness beyond my firelight. Soyun. Of course it was her. Who else would the council send to tempt me into quitting? She wore practical clothes and carried a pack. Her expression was carefully sympathetic, like a mask she'd practiced. Jiho, she said softly, settling near my fire without asking. I've come to offer you a choice. Here it was, the moment Minji had warned me about. I'm listening, I said, proud that my voice didn't shake. You've proven yourself. 2 trials passed, no one questions your courage anymore. She opened her pack, revealing food, water, warm clothes, everything I desperately wanted. You can come back now. Leave Songpa with honor. Find a pack that won't demand so much from you. The temptation crashed over me like a wave. Food, warmth, an end to this nightmare. Or, she continued, you can take these supplies and stay until dawn tomorrow. No one needs to know I helped you. We'll say you endured on your own. The trap beneath the kindness was obvious. Taking the supplies would be cheating. Accepting help meant failing the trial just as surely as quitting early. Why are you really here? I asked. Soyun's mask slipped. Because I want you to fail. Because you don't deserve my alphas. Don't deserve Songpa. She leaned forward. But I'm also practical. You've impressed people. If you pass this trial, you'll have influence. So I'm offering you an out that benefits us both. You leave with dignity, I get you gone. And my son gets another chance at bonding with worthy alphas. Your son, I repeated, the one you wanted them to choose instead of me. Minsok is strong, powerful, everything an alpha triad needs. Her voice turned sharp. You're shivering so hard you can barely speak. You haven't eaten a real meal in 2 days. The bond pain is tearing you apart. Pride will kill you out here. Then I'll die proud. I stood, legs shaking but holding. Take your supplies and your false sympathy and leave. I'm staying until the 3rd dawn. For a long moment, Soyeon stared at me. Then she laughed, bitter and sharp. You're either the bravest wolf I've ever met or the most foolish. She shouldered her pack. I suppose we'll find out which by morning. She disappeared into the darkness, leaving me alone again. The night stretched impossibly long after that. My fire burned low despite my efforts. The cold seeped into my bones. The mate bonds screamed their protest, actual pain now radiating through my chest. Was Minjae feeling this too? Seojun? Daehyun? Were they lying awake in the pack house, hurting the same way? I wrapped my arms around myself and held on. Just hold on. Dawn would come. The 3rd dawn. And I would walk back into Songpa on my own feet. Or I wouldn't walk back at all. The sky began to lighten. gray giving way to pink. Day 3, the final day. I stood, stamped out my dying fire, and began the journey back. Every step was agony. My body protested. The bonds pulled and ached. But I walked, one foot forward, then the other, again and again. The forest changed as I walked, becoming familiar. I was close, so close. Then I saw them, the territory boundary, and beyond it, gathered in the early morning light, the entire pack, waiting. I stumbled the last 100 yards. My vision blurred. My legs finally decided they were done cooperating, but I made it. I crossed onto Songpa territory and felt the bonds flare hot with relief. Strong arms caught me before I hit the ground. Minjae. I've got you, he murmured against my hair. You made it. You're home. Home. The words settled into my chest like a promise. Taemin's voice boomed across the gathered pack. Park Jiho has endured 3 days alone and returned at the third dawn. He has passed the final trial. He paused, and when he spoke again, there was genuine warmth. Welcome to Songpa, Jiho. Welcome home. The pack erupted into howls. Not all of them enthusiastic, but enough were genuine that tears stung my eyes. I'd done it. 3 trials, 3 days of hell, and I'd survived. Minjae held me upright as the crowd pressed closer. Seojin appeared on my other side, his hand finding mine. Daehyun's presence settled behind me, solid and protective. 3 alphas, 3 bonds, humming with relief so intense it made my knees weak. You absolute idiot, Seojin said, but his voice cracked. You beautiful, stubborn, idiotic Omega. That's me, professional idiot. Hana pushed through the crowd and I tensed instinctively. But she wasn't approaching to fight. She held out her hand. You earned this, she said simply. I took her hand and she pulled me into a brief, crushing hug that made my ribs scream. Welcome to Songpa, Omega. Try not to die now that you've made it this far. I'll do my best. More pack members came forward. Not all of them friendly, but acknowledging. Junho, the young wolf from before, grinned like I'd just won a war. Even some of the hostile faces had shifted to grudging respect. I'd become pack. Yoonji materialized with her healer's bag. Inside, now, before you collapse and make me work harder. I'm fine. You're hypothermic, dehydrated, and running on fumes. She pointed at the pack house. Move! Minjae swept me up before I could protest, carrying me like I weighed nothing. I should have been embarrassed, should have insisted I could walk. But honestly, I was too exhausted to care. The pack house interior was warm, blessedly, impossibly warm. Minjae carried me upstairs to my room and set me down gently on the bed. Yoonji immediately started her examination, checking vitals, looking for frostbite, tutting over my weight loss. 3 days and you've lost 5 pounds. Ridiculous. She pressed a cup of something hot into my hands. Drink. It's broth. Your stomach can't handle solid food yet. I drank. It tasted like heaven. The bond pain, I said quietly. Were they okay? Your alphas? Yoonji's expression softened. They were miserable, all 3 of them. Minjae barely slept. Seojin paced holes in the floor. Daehyun broke 2 training dummies. Guilt twisted in my chest. I'm sorry. Don't be. That's what mate bonds do. They make you suffer together. She finished her examination. You'll live. Rest now. Actual rest, not the half-conscious survival you've been doing. She left and suddenly I was alone with my 3 alphas. They stood around the bed like sentinels, all of them looking exhausted, all of them radiating relief through the bonds. I'm sorry, I said again, for making you hurt. Stop apologizing, Minjae said firmly. He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough to touch. You did what you had to do. We knew what we were signing up for. Did you? The question came out sharper than intended. Because I'm not sure any of us knew what we were signing up for. This whole thing was supposed to be political, convenient. But the bonds hurt like hell when you're gone, Seojin finished. He settled on my other side. Yeah, we noticed. That's not normal, is it? For chosen bonds? It is when the bonds are real, Daehyun said from his position by the window. Chosen or fated, once they form, they don't care about the reasons. They just care about connection. I processed this. We'd bonded out of necessity, political convenience. But somewhere between the ceremony and now, the bonds had become real. What happens now? I asked. Now you're Pac, Minji said. Officially, the trials are over. You've proven yourself. The Autumn Council can't challenge our right to you. The Autumn Council. The whole reason this started. When is it? 3 weeks. Minji's expression darkened. We need to prepare, present you formally, prove the bonds are legitimate. They are legitimate. We know that, but the council will look for any excuse to challenge, especially since we're a triad claiming an omega from outside our territory. So more tests, more proving myself. Different kind of tests, Seojin said. Political ones. You'll need to know how to navigate council dynamics, how to present yourself, how to defend our claim without appearing weak. Great. From physical survival to political warfare. At least I'd be warm and fed for this one. Can I sleep first? What? I asked. Before we start the political training? You can sleep for a week if you want, Minji said, and something in his voice made me look at him. Really look at him. He looked wrecked. Dark circles under his eyes, tension in every line of his body. The mate bond between us hummed with exhaustion and relief, and something deeper I didn't want to name. You didn't sleep at all, did you? I asked quietly. Couldn't. The bond wouldn't let me. Without thinking, I reached out and took his hand. His fingers closed around mine immediately, warm and solid. I'm sorry, I said for the third time. Stop apologizing and go to sleep. But his grip tightened. We'll be here when you wake up. I wanted to stay awake, wanted to talk more, understand more, figure out what we were becoming. But exhaustion pulled at me like a tide, and I stopped fighting it. I slept. For the first time in days, I slept deeply, dreamlessly, held safe by bonds that had stopped being convenient and started being real. I woke to voices arguing in hushed tones. We can't just spring this on him. We don't have a choice. The message arrived an hour ago. He just finished 3 days of hell. Give him time. My eyes opened slowly. The room was dim, curtains drawn. Seojun and Daehyun stood by the window, having what they clearly thought was a private conversation. I'm awake, I said. My voice came out rough. And I can hear you. They turned, guilt written across their faces. How long was I asleep? I asked. 6 hours, Seojin said. We were letting you rest, but something happened. I sat up slowly, my body protesting. What is it? Daehyun's expression was grim. The Autumn Council moved up their meeting. It's not in 3 weeks anymore. Ice flooded my veins. When? 5 days. 5 days. Not 3 weeks. 5 days to prepare for political warfare that could destroy everything we'd built. Why? I asked. Because they're suspicious, Minjae said, entering from the hallway. He held a message scroll, his expression carved from stone. They heard about a Gangnam Omega passing 3 trials in Songpa. They want to verify the bonds are legitimate before officially recognizing them. Verify how? By making you stand before the full council and prove you're worthy of 3 alpha mates. His jaw clenched. They're invoking the ancient right of inquiry. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. What does that mean? I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I knew. It means they can question you, test you, challenge every aspect of our bond. Minja's hands clenched around the scroll. And if they find any weakness, any reason to doubt, they can dissolve the bonds and exile you from all pact territories. They can exile me from everywhere? The Autumn Council has authority over all pacts in the region, Seojin explained. If they rule against you, no pact can offer sanctuary. You'd be alone. Packless. Packless meant death for most wolves. We were social creatures. Isolation destroyed us. So I have 5 days to prepare for questions that could end with me losing everything. Yes, Minja said simply. I looked between my 3 alphas. They'd chosen me out of necessity, political convenience. But somewhere along the way, the bonds had become real. I'd suffered for them. They'd suffered for me. And now some council of strangers could take it all away. No, I said. They all looked at me. No? Minjae repeated. No, I didn't survive 3 trials just to let some political council destroy what we've built. I pushed myself out of bed, ignoring my body's protests. You said I need to prove I'm worthy? Fine. Teach me how. Something shifted in Minja's expression, pride mixed with concern. It won't be easy, he warned. Nothing about this has been easy. I crossed to where they stood. But I'm still here, so teach me what I need to know. Seojin grinned. There's the stubborn Omega we chose. You really didn't have a choice, did you? I looked at Minjae. About moving up the council meeting. They're forcing your hand. They've been looking for an excuse to challenge us since we took control of Songpa. Minjae admitted. We're young. We're a triad, which is unusual. And we've been consolidating power too quickly. They see us as a threat. So this isn't really about me. It's about undermining you. It's about both. Daehyun's voice was grave. You're the weakness they can exploit. Prove you're unworthy, and they discredit us. Force us to dissolve the bonds, and they show we can't even keep an Omega. Politics, I muttered. I hate politics. You'll need to love it for the next 5 days, Seojin said, because we're about to give you a crash course in surviving council games. A knock interrupted us. Taemin entered without waiting for permission, his scarred face serious. I heard about the council's message, he said, and I'm here to help. Minja's eyebrows rose. You're offering to train him? I'm offering to make sure he doesn't get eaten alive. Taemin's eyes were sharp. The Autumn Council doesn't play fair. They'll use every trick, every loophole, every psychological weapon they have. Jiho needs to be prepared. Why help me? I asked. You're part of Songpa's council. You could just let me fail. Because you earned your place here, Taemin said firmly. 3 trials, 3 days. You proved you belong. I won't let some political games undo that. He paused. Also, Soyeon will try to sabotage you. She's already been sending messages to council members, planting doubts. Of course she has, I muttered, which is why we start training immediately. Taemin gestured to the door. Get dressed. Meet me in the strategy room in 10 minutes. We have a lot to cover and not much time. He left, and I was alone with my alphas again. Can I do this? I asked quietly. Can I really stand before a council of strangers and defend myself? You stood in front of Hana and didn't break, Daehyun said. You can do this. That was physical. This is different. This uses your actual strength, Minjae countered. Your mind, your words, your ability to read people and situations. His amber eyes held mine. You're better suited for this than the combat trial ever was. I wanted to believe him. What happens if I fail? I asked. If they dissolve the bonds? The question hung heavy in the air. Then we fight it, Minjae said finally. Challenge their ruling. Refuse to let you go. That would destroy your political standing. I don't care about political standing. His voice was fierce. You're ours, Jiho. Chosen bonds or not, convenience or not. You're ours, and we're not giving you up without a fight. The words settled into my chest, warm and terrifying. This had started as politics. Necessity. 3 alphas needing an omega before a deadline. But somewhere between the ceremony and the trials and the 3 days of suffering, it had become real. We'd become real. Okay, I said, then let's make sure I don't fail. I dressed quickly in clean clothes that actually fit, ate the food Yoonji had left, forcing down nutrients my body needed. Then I made my way to the strategy room. It was exactly what I expected, austere, functional, dominated by maps and documents. Taemin waited with Minjae, Seojin, and Daehyun. Even Hana was there, arms crossed and expression serious. All right, I said, stepping inside. Teach me how to survive this. Taemin gestured to a chair at the center of the room. Sit. First lesson, the Autumn Council consists of 12 members, 4 from major packs, 8 elected representatives from smaller territories. They'll all have different agendas, different biases, different reasons to support or oppose you. He laid out documents with names and faces. Your biggest threat is Councilman Jaewon. He's from the old guard, believes in traditional hierarchy. He'll see a triad claiming an omega from outside territory as a violation of natural order. Natural order, I repeated. Meaning what exactly? meaning omegas should be claimed by single alphas from their birth packs. Triads are rare and viewed with suspicion. Cross-territory bonds are seen as political maneuvering. Taman's finger moved to another document. He'll question your motives, suggest you're being used, try to make you admit the bonds aren't genuine. But they are genuine. We know that. You need to make him believe it. Taman pulled out more papers. Then there's Councilwoman Yunseo. She's progressive, supports new pack structures. She'll be sympathetic, but she's also ruthlessly practical. She'll want proof the bonds benefit both parties, not just the alphas. So I need to prove I'm not being coerced, but also not useless. Exactly. Seojin grinned without humor. Welcome to politics. There are others, Taman continued, walking me through each council member. Their histories, their biases, their likely questions. My head spun with information. The key, Minji said, is to stay calm. Don't let them rattle you. Answer honestly but carefully. Every word will be analyzed. No pressure then. Oh, there's massive pressure, Hana said cheerfully. But you've handled pressure before. This is just a different arena. We drilled for hours. Taman threw questions at me. Rapid fire, hostile, designed to shake me. I stumbled at first, but gradually found my footing. Why should three alphas claim one? Omega? Because mate bonds aren't about numbers. They're about connection. What do you bring to this triad? Intelligence, loyalty, and the stubborn refusal to quit that seems to be my defining characteristic. You're from Gangnam. Why leave your birth pack? Because they never saw me. Songpa does. The answers came easier with practice, but exhaustion crept in, and Yunji finally called a halt. Enough, he needs rest, not a mental breakdown. 5 days isn't enough time, I protested. Then we make it enough, Minja said firmly. But Yunji's right. Rest now. We continue tomorrow. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The mate bonds hummed steadily, all three of my alphas close by. I could feel their worry through the connection, their determination. 5 days until everything we'd built could be destroyed. 5 days to prove I belonged. A soft knock made me sit up. The door opened, and all three of them entered. No words, just silent agreement. They settled around me. Minjae on my right, Seojin on my left, Daehyun at the foot of the bed. We don't have to do this, Minjae said quietly. If it's too much, if you want to walk away, I'm not walking away. I looked at each of them. I've come too far. We've come too far. The council will try to break you, Daehyun warned. They can try. Doesn't mean they'll succeed. Seojin's hand found mine in the darkness. When did you get so brave? When 3 alphas chose me and refused to let me quit. I squeezed his hand. You made me brave. Now let me prove I'm worth it. The bonds hummed with something warm and fierce. Not love, not yet, but the foundation for it. Trust, respect, partnership. 5 days until the council. 5 days to prepare for political war. But tonight, surrounded by my alphas, feeling the bonds steady in my chest, I let myself believe we might actually survive this. We had to, because I wasn't losing this, wasn't losing them. Not after everything we'd endured to get here. Sleep came easier with them there. I woke to gray dawn light filtering through the curtains, still surrounded by 3 bodies radiating warmth. Minja's arm was draped across my waist. Seojin had somehow ended up with his head on my shoulder. Daehyun sat against the headboard, awake and watchful. How long have you been up? I whispered. An hour. Couldn't sleep. His dark eyes found mine. Today we start preparing in earnest. Right. 5 days until the council. 4 now technically, since dawn had broken. I carefully extracted myself from Minja and Seojin without waking them. My body still ached from the trials, but it was manageable. Healing. Come on, Daehyun said quietly. Let's get coffee before the chaos starts. The pack house was silent at this hour. We walked through empty corridors to a small kitchen I hadn't seen before. Daehyun moved with practiced efficiency, brewing coffee that smelled like salvation. You know, I said, accepting the cup he offered, you don't talk much, but when you do, it matters. Words should matter. Otherwise, why waste them? Fair point. I sipped the coffee. It was strong enough to wake the dead. Can I ask you something? Always. Why did you agree to this? The three of you claiming an omega together. That's not normal, even for triads. Daehyun leaned against the counter, considering. Because separate, we're strong. Together, we're stronger. But without an omega to anchor us, we're just three alphas competing for dominance. He paused. You make us complete. Balance us. I'm not sure how I balance anything. I'm a mess. You're honest. You don't play games. You say what you mean. His scarred hands wrapped around his own cup. In a world full of political manipulation, that's rare. Valuable. Footsteps interrupted us. Taemin appeared in the doorway, looking like he hadn't slept either. Good. You're up. We need to talk before the others wake. My stomach dropped. That sounds ominous. It's practical. He joined us, pouring his own coffee. The council will try to separate you from your alphas during questioning, make you feel isolated, vulnerable. You need to be prepared for that. How do I prepare for isolation? By remembering it's a tactic, not reality. Taemin's eyes were sharp. They'll ask questions designed to make you doubt. Doubt yourself, doubt the bonds, doubt your alpha's intentions. Don't let them. Easier said than done, which is why we practice. He set down his cup. I'm going to ask you questions, hostile questions, questions designed to hurt, and you're going to answer without breaking. My hands tightened around my coffee. Now, no time like the present. Daehyun moved to stand behind me, a silent show of support. I took a breath and nodded. Taemin's expression shifted, became cold, calculating. When he spoke again, his voice was different, cruel. Why would three powerful alphas want a defective omega like you? The words hit like a slap. I forced myself to breathe through it. Because I'm not defective, I'm different. And difference isn't weakness. Your own pack rejected you. 4 ceremonies, 4 times unwanted. What makes you think you deserve better? I don't need to deserve better. I just need to be seen. And they saw me. Or they saw a desperate omega they could manipulate. Taemin leaned forward. How do you know they actually want you? How do you know this isn't just politics? That one cut deeper, because I'd asked myself the same question. I don't know, I said honestly, not with complete certainty. But the bonds are real, the pain was real, everything. We've endured together is real. That has to mean something. Does it? Or are you just desperate to belong somewhere? Maybe I am desperate. Maybe that's why I fought so hard. My voice grew stronger. But desperation doesn't make the bonds false. It makes them necessary. And sometimes necessity becomes something more. Taemin held my gaze for a long moment. Then his expression softened back to normal. Good. That's the kind of answer you need. Honest but firm. Acknowledging doubt without letting it destroy you. I exhaled shakily. That was awful. The real thing will be worse. They'll have hours to break you down. He straightened. But if you can hold on to that honesty, that core truth about why you're here, you'll survive. Voices echoed from upstairs. The pack was waking. Time to start the real preparation, Taemin said. Today we cover council protocol. Tomorrow we drill responses. The next 3 days will be the hardest thing you've done yet. Harder than 3 days alone in the wilderness? Different hard. This attacks your mind instead of your body. His expression was grave. And sometimes the mind breaks easier. The next hours blurred together in a haze of information. Council hierarchy, formal address protocols, the specific wording required for oaths and declarations, how to stand, how to speak, how to breathe without showing weakness. Minjae drilled me on pack law. Seojin taught me to read faces, spot tells when someone was lying or hostile. Hana, surprisingly, showed me breathing techniques to stay calm under pressure. Learn these in combat, she explained, but they work for any high-stress situation. Control your breath, control your mind. By midday, my head throbbed with information overload. Break, Yoonji commanded, appearing with food. Eat. Your brain needs fuel. I ate mechanically, barely tasting it. Around me, my alphas and Taemin discussed strategy, potential questions, ways to counter hostile council members. Jiho. I looked up to find Seojin watching me with concern. You're spiraling, he said quietly. I can feel it through the bond. I'm fine. You're terrified. There's a difference. He moved closer. Talk to me. I set down my food. What if I fail? What if I say the wrong thing? Or freeze? Or give them exactly the ammunition they need to destroy us? Then we deal with it. Together. His hand found mine. But you're not going to fail, Jiho. You've survived everything they've thrown at you so far. This is different. Is it? Or is it just another test in a long line of tests? Sojun's eyes were serious. You keep thinking each trial is the one that'll break you. But you're still here. Still fighting. I'm exhausted. So rest. We have time. We have 3 days. Then rest for an hour. Come on. He pulled me to my feet, ignoring protests from the others. He needs a break. Actual rest, not more drilling. He led me back to my room and pointed at the bed. Lie down. Close your eyes. Stop thinking for 60 minutes. I can't just stop thinking. Yes, you can. Watch. He settled beside me, pulling me against his side. Close your eyes. Focus on breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. I tried, failed. My mind kept spinning with questions and fears and potential disasters. Jiho. Seojin's voice was soft. Do you trust me? Yes. Then trust that we'll get through this. Together. His presence was warm, solid. The bond between us hummed steadily. Gradually, my breathing slowed. My thoughts quieted. I didn't sleep exactly, but I rested. Let myself exist without the crushing weight of preparation for a little while. When I opened my eyes again, the light had shifted. An hour had passed. Better? Seojin asked. Better, I admitted. Good, because Taemin's waiting to drill you on council member backgrounds. I groaned. Can't I just stay here forever? Tempting, but no. He pulled me upright. Come on, 3 more days of hell, then you face the council and show them exactly what they're dealing with. A terrified Omega who's in way over his head? A stubborn, brilliant Omega who refuses to quit. Seojin's smile was sharp. They have no idea what's coming. The next 3 days were exactly as brutal as promised. Taemin threw impossible questions. Minjae tested my knowledge of pack politics. Seojin had me practice reading hostile body language. Daehyun taught me to project confidence I didn't feel. By the 3rd day, I could recite council member biographies in my sleep, could answer hostile questions without flinching, could stand before scrutiny without crumbling. But I was also exhausted, mentally, emotionally, physically drained. One more drill, Taemin said as evening fell on the 3rd day. Full simulation. All of us playing council members. You defend your bonds. I stood in the center of the strategy room while they surrounded me. Even Hana participated, her expression carefully hostile. They came at me from all sides. Questions overlapping, designed to confuse and overwhelm. Why should we recognize these bonds? What do you bring to this triad? Your former pack rejected you 4 times. 4. What changed? How do we know you're not being coerced? Prove the bonds are genuine. I answered each one, but they didn't let up. Kept pressing, kept pushing, kept trying to find the break point. You're weak. You're using them. They're using you. This is a political sham. Prove it's not. Something inside me snapped. Not broke. Snapped like a rubber band pulled too tight. Enough! My voice echoed through the room and everyone froze. I could feel it happening. The thing that had made Seojin freeze during training. The telepathic push that came when I was desperate. Stop. Listen. Understand. The command rippled out from me in a wave. Every person in the room went still, their eyes widening. Into that silence I spoke. You want to know if the bonds are real? They're real. You want to know if I'm being used? I chose this. Walked into it with open eyes because anything was better than sitting alone at ceremonies for the rest of my life. My hands trembled, but my voice stayed steady. You want to know what I bring? I bring honesty. I bring refusal to quit. I bring the ability to survive things that should have broken me and keep getting back up. I looked at each of them. The bonds started as politics, necessity. 3 alphas needed an omega before a deadline, and I needed to belong somewhere. But necessity doesn't stay transactional when you suffer together, when you hurt together, When you choose each other again and again, despite everything. The power faded. The telepathic push released. Everyone blinked, coming back to themselves. Taman stared at me with something like awe. That, he said slowly, is exactly what you need to do tomorrow. Tomorrow. The council meeting was tomorrow. Reality crashed over me. I just used telepathy on all of you without permission. You used truth, Minjae corrected, moving to my side. Backed by power, yes, but rooted in honesty. His eyes burned. That's what the council needs to see. Not a perfect Omega, a real one. One who can project his truth into their minds. If necessary, his mouth curved, almost a smile. They won't expect it. None of us did. Is that allowed? Using powers during council proceedings? There's no law against it, Taman said. And it proves you're more than the runt everyone dismissed. You have rare abilities. That makes you valuable, worthy. I wasn't sure I believed him, but I was too exhausted to argue. Get some sleep, Yunji said from the doorway. Nobody had noticed her arrive. Tomorrow you'll need every bit of strength you have. That night my alphas stayed close again, not crowding, just present. The bonds hummed between us, steady and sure. Whatever happens tomorrow, Minjae said into the darkness, remember you're not alone in that room. We'll be there. The bonds will be there. What if it's not enough? Then we fight the ruling, challenge it, refuse to accept it. His voice was steel. You're ours, Jiho. That's not changing. The words settled into my chest like a promise. I slept fitfully, dreaming of counsels and questions and failing in front of everyone who mattered. Dawn came too quickly. I woke to find all three of them already awake, already dressed in formal attire. Council clothes, black and severe and absolutely terrifying. Time, I asked, though I knew. Time, Minjae confirmed. Yunji arrived with council-appropriate clothes for me. Simple but elegant. Nothing that would draw attention or criticism. I dressed mechanically, my hands shaking. Ate breakfast without tasting it. Let them fuss over me without protest. Then we walked to the vehicles waiting outside. The Autumn Council met in neutral territory, a building specifically designed for inter-pack politics. We drove for an hour in heavy silence, the bonds thick with anxiety. When we arrived, dozens of vehicles were already there. Representatives from every major pack, council members, witnesses. The building loomed ahead, all stone and glass and cold authority. Ready? Minjae asked. No, but let's do this anyway. We walked inside together. The council chamber was massive, tiered seating rising up on all sides, filled with watching wolves. At the front, 12 council members sat at an elevated table, judging, evaluating, looking for weaknesses. We approached the center floor, the designated space for those being questioned. Councilman Jaewon stood, his voice booming across the chamber. We are here to evaluate the bonds claim between the Songpa triad and the Gangnam Omega Park Jiho. Let the inquiry begin. My heart hammered. The bonds pulsed with my alpha's fear and determination. This was it. Everything we'd built. Everything we'd survived. All of it came down to this moment. Jaewon's eyes fixed on me, cold and assessing. Park Jiho, he said, and his voice was already hostile. Explain to this council why 3 powerful alphas would choose a wolf who was rejected by his own pack 4 times. What possible value could you offer that justified cross-territory claiming? The chamber went silent. Every eye in the room was on me. I took a breath, remembered everything I'd learned, everything I'd survived. Then I spoke. Because rejection doesn't define worth. It just reveals who's too blind to see it. My voice carried across the silent chamber. I was rejected 4 times in Gangnam. 4 ceremonies where I sat alone while others were chosen. 4 years of being invisible, unwanted, less than. I met Jaewon's eyes directly. But that didn't make me worthless. It made me resilient. It taught me to survive when survival seemed impossible. I gestured to my alphas standing behind me. They saw that resilience, saw strength everyone else missed, and they chose me not despite my history, but because of it. Because wolves who've been broken and rebuilt themselves are stronger than wolves who've never been tested. Jaewon's expression was unreadable. Pretty words, But this council deals in facts, not poetry. Prove these bonds are legitimate. Prove you're not being manipulated or coerced. How? I asked. What proof would satisfy you? The bonds exist. The trials were passed. What more evidence do you need? Evidence. Councilwoman Yunseo spoke up, her voice sharp. That you understand what you've entered into. That you're capable of being an alpha triad's mate. That this isn't simply three alphas exploiting a desperate omega. The questions came faster then, overlapping, designed to confuse and overwhelm exactly as Taman had warned. What do you know of triad dynamics? How do you balance three alpha bonds? What happens when they disagree? What's your role in pack politics? How do you contribute? I answered each one, drawing on everything I'd learned. But they kept pushing, kept probing, looking for the crack that would let them pry everything apart. Then Jaewon asked the question I'd been dreading. Tell us the truth, Park Jiho. Do you love them? Or is this just convenience masquerading as fate? The chamber went silent. Every person in the room waited for my answer. I could lie, could say what they wanted to hear, that it was true love, destiny, fate bringing us together. But I'd built everything on honesty. I couldn't stop now. I don't know if I love them yet, I said quietly. Gas rippled through the chamber. My alphas tensed behind me. But, I continued, my voice growing stronger, I know I choose them. Every day. Every moment. Despite the pain, despite the trials, despite everything that tried to break us. I turned slightly, looking at Minjae, Seojin, and Daehyun. Love takes time. Trust takes time. But choice is immediate. And I choose them. Choose this. Choose us. I turned back to the council. So no, I can't stand here and claim undying love born from a mate bond that started as politics. But I can claim something more important. Commitment. Partnership. The willingness to keep choosing each other no matter what you throw at us. I felt the power building again. The telepathic push that came when truth needed to be heard. Understand this. Feel this. Know this. The words rippled out with force, hitting every person in the chamber. These bonds are real because we made them real, because we suffered for them, because we refused to let politics or doubt or your skepticism destroy what we built. The power released. Silence crashed down. Then slowly, Councilwoman Yunseo began to smile. Well, she said, that's the first honest answer I've heard in this chamber in years. Jaewon's face darkened. Honesty doesn't excuse weakness. This Omega admits he doesn't even love his claimed alphas. How can we recognize bonds built on nothing but convenience? Because convenience is how most bonds start, Yunseo countered, leaning forward. Her sharp eyes were focused entirely on me. True mates are rare. Most of us build our bonds through choice and time. This Omega understands that better than most. He's manipulating you, Jaewon snapped. That power he just used? Telepathic. Persuasion. He's forcing you to believe him. I don't think so. Another council member spoke up. An older woman I recognized as Councilwoman Mihi. Persuasion feels different. That felt like truth amplification. He didn't change our thoughts. He just made us feel what he was feeling. Semantics, Jaewon bit out. No, I said, finding my voice again. It's not. I can't make you believe something that isn't true. I can only make you feel what I feel. And what I feel is certainty. About this bond. About these alphas. About choosing to be here despite every reason to run. Pretty speech, Jaewon said coldly. But speeches don't prove legitimacy. You passed 3 trials in Songpa. Congratulations. That proves you can survive, not that you're worthy of 3 alpha mates. Then what would prove it? I asked, frustration bleeding through. What evidence would satisfy you? Because it feels like you've already decided to reject us no matter what I say. Careful, Omega. Jaewon's voice was ice. You're addressing the Autumn Council. Show respect. I am showing respect. By being honest. I refuse to back down. You want me to perform. To say the right words, play the right role. Be the perfect Omega who knows his place. But that's not what they chose. They chose me because I don't perform. I survive. Surviving and thriving are different things, another council member said. Councilman Dongwoo, I remembered from my preparation. What happens when survival isn't enough? When pack politics require more than just stubborn endurance, then I learn, I adapt, I become what's needed. I looked directly at him. Isn't that what all of us do? None of us start out knowing everything. We grow into our roles. Some roles require more than growth, Jaewon said. They require breeding, bloodlines. You're from Gangnam, a pack known for its weakness. What kind of pups would you produce? The insult hit like a physical blow. Behind me, I felt my alphas tense. Minjae's rage bled through the bond, hot and sharp. But I couldn't let them fight this battle. This was mine. My bloodline, I said slowly, each word measured, produced me. A wolf who survived 4 rejections and kept standing, who passed 3 trials designed to break me, who has rare telepathic abilities that even your council recognizes. I stepped forward. So yes, let's talk about bloodlines. Let's talk about what my pups might inherit. Resilience, intelligence, the refusal to quit when things get hard. I'd say that's a pretty strong foundation. You're Omega, J1 said flatly. You don't get to be proud. You get to be useful. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Even some of the other council members looked uncomfortable. Yunseo's expression had gone ice cold. Councilman J1, she said sharply, that is not the Iraoyuner position of this council. It's reality, J1 shot back. Omegas serve pack needs. That's their function. This one seems to have forgotten that. Something inside me shifted, not broke, shifted, like tectonic plates finding a new position. I'd spent my entire life believing I was less than, believing that being Omega meant being weak, secondary, forgettable. But standing here in front of the entire Autumn Council, I realized something. They were wrong. All of them. No, I said quietly. The whispers died. No? J1 repeated dangerously. No, I'm not going to stand here and accept that being Omega means being less than. I looked around the chamber at all the watching faces. I'm Omega, yes, but I'm also intelligent, strong in ways that don't require physical dominance, capable of surviving things that would break most wolves. I turned back to Jaiwan. You want me to be useful? Fine, I'm useful. I balance 3 alphas who would tear each other apart without an anchor. I think strategically, read people, navigate politics you probably think I'm too stupid to understand. I have rare abilities that could benefit pack dynamics across territories. My voice grew stronger. But more than that, I'm a person, not a function, not a role, a person who deserves respect regardless of designation. I felt the telepathic power building again. And if this council can't recognize that, then maybe the problem isn't with me. Maybe it's with you. The power released in a wave. See me. Really see me. Not as Omega, as Wolf. The command rippled through the chamber. I felt it connect, felt understanding bloom in minds that had been closed, including Jaewon's. His expression shifted. Surprise, confusion, then something that might have been respect. The silence stretched impossibly long. Then Councilwoman Yunseo stood. I've heard enough, she said. Her voice carried authority that made everyone straighten. This Omega has proven himself in every way that matters. Intelligence, courage, honesty, rare abilities, and the strength to stand before this council and demand the respect he deserves. She looked at the other council members. I vote to recognize the Songpa triad bonds as legitimate and binding. All in favor? Aye, said Mihi immediately. Aye, said Dongwu. Aye, said 3 others in quick succession. 6 votes, halfway there. The remaining 6 council members looked at each other, at me, at my alphas standing rigid behind me. Then slowly, one by one, they raised their hands. Even J1. Aye, he said, though the word sounded like it cost him. The Omega has proven his worth. Yunseo's smile was sharp with satisfaction. Then by unanimous vote of the Autumn Council, we recognize the bonds between Park Jiho and the Songpa triad as legitimate, binding, and protected under interpack law. She struck the gavel. This inquiry is concluded. Welcome to the recognized packs, Jiho of Songpa. The chamber erupted. Not all cheers, but enough celebration that warmth flooded my chest. We'd done it. Actually done it. I turned to find my alphas already moving. Min-jae reached me first, pulling me into a crushing embrace that made my ribs protest. You magnificent, stubborn, incredible Omega, he murmured against my hair. You did it. We did it, I corrected. Seojin crashed into us next, laughing with relief. That was the most terrifying and amazing thing I've ever witnessed. Did you see Jaewon's face when you basically told the entire council they were wrong? I may have gotten carried away. You were perfect. Daehyun's arms came around all of us, creating a cocoon of warmth and safety. Absolutely perfect. The bonds sang in my chest. 3 threads, strong and sure and real. Not political anymore. Not convenient. Just ours. Taemin appeared, grinning like he'd won a personal victory. I told you that you could do it. Though I'll admit, I didn't expect you to go full revolutionary on the council's outdated views. Neither did I admitted. It just came out. Good, it needed saying. He clasped my shoulder. You're going to change things, Jiho. For Omegas everywhere, whether you meant to or not. The crowd pressed closer. Pack members from Songpa celebrating. Wolves from other territories looking at me with new interest. Even some council members approached to offer congratulations. Yunseo found us in the chaos. That was well done, she said. Risky, calling out the council like that, but effective. Her eyes were sharp. You have political instincts. Use them. The packs need voices like yours. I just want to go home, I said honestly. Then go. You've earned your rest. She smiled. But know that this isn't the end, Jiho. It's the beginning. You've proven that Omegas can be more than traditional roles. That's going to ripple outward. As we made our way out of the chamber, I caught sight of Soyeon in the crowd. She looked furious, defeated. But she nodded once. Acknowledgement, if not acceptance. I'd take it. The drive back to Songpa felt different, lighter. The tension that had been coiled in my chest for weeks finally released. What happens now? I asked as Seoul's lights appeared on the horizon. Now? Min-jae's hand found mine. Now we live. Build our bond properly. Figure out what we're becoming. No more trials? No more trial, he confirmed. Your pack. Officially, permanently. No one can challenge that now. What if I'm terrible at being an Alpha Triad's mate? Then you'll learn, Seojin said from the front seat. Just like everything else. One stubborn step at a time. We arrived at the pack house to find it lit up like a festival. The entire pack had gathered, waiting. When we emerged from the vehicle, they erupted in howls. Hana pushed through the crowd first. You did it, Omega. Made us all proud. Even you? Especially me. Anyone who can tell the Autumn Council they're full of shit has my respect. She grinned. Welcome home. Home. The word settled into place like it had always belonged there. Junho appeared with flowers. These are traditional, for newly recognized bonds. I picked them myself. They're beautiful. Thank you. More pack members came forward. Not all friendly, but acknowledging. I'd earned my place through trials and truth. That meant something here. Elder Unji pushed through with food. Eat. You've been running on anxiety for days. Actual nutrients now. The celebration continued into the night. Food and drink and stories. Pack bonds strengthening around acceptance and belonging. But eventually exhaustion pulled at me. The adrenaline crash was coming. Min-jae noticed immediately. Come on, you need rest. He guided me away from the celebration, up to the room that had become mine. Seojin and Daehyun followed, creating our small bubble of quiet in the chaos. Can I ask you something? I said as we settled into the room. Always, Min-jae said. Earlier, when I said I didn't know if I loved you yet. Did that hurt? The 3 of them exchanged glances. No, Seojin said finally, because it was honest. And honesty is better than pretty lies. Besides, Daehyun added, you're right. Love takes time. We're not there yet either. But we're getting there, Min-jae said softly. His amber eyes held mine. Every day, every choice, every moment we choose each other. That's how love builds. So what are we now, I asked. If not in love, but more than political convenience? Partners, Min-jae said. Mates who are becoming something more. Family, Daehyun offered. Home, Seojin finished. The words wrapped around me like a blanket. I like that, I said. Partners, family, home. That's enough for now. More than enough, Minjae agreed. We settled into comfortable silence. The bonds hummed steadily, no longer strained by distance or doubt, just present, real. Thank you, I said quietly, for choosing me, even though it was political at first. Thank you for seeing something worth choosing. Thank you for proving us right, Minji countered, for being exactly what we needed, even when you didn't believe it yourself. I felt sleep pulling at me, the exhaustion of weeks finally demanding payment. Stay, I asked. Tonight? Always, they said in unison. We arranged ourselves on the too small bed, bodies pressed close, warmth shared. The bonds settled into a rhythm like breathing, and for the first time since that ceremony in Gangnam, I felt completely, utterly safe. I'd started this journey as an unwanted runt, sitting alone at ceremonies, invisible and insignificant. I'd endured trials designed to break me, faced councils trying to destroy what we'd built, stood before judgment and demanded respect I'd never thought I deserved. And I'd survived. More than survived. I'd found pack, found mates, found myself. The bonds weren't political anymore. They were real, built through choice and suffering and stubborn refusal to quit. Not love yet, but the foundation for it. Trust, respect, partnership. Everything else would come with time. As I drifted into sleep, surrounded by three alphas who'd chosen me and kept choosing me, I realized something. I wasn't the runt anymore. I was Jiho of Songpa, mate to a triad, survivor of trials, voice for omegas who'd been told they were less than, and I was exactly where I belonged. Finally, completely, home. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. If that ending wrecked you, hit subscribe. The next chapter drops soon.